4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Moist Mike, Stuart Kovacs, rocking and roll with me all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Giants offensive lineman Justin Pugh, also used to play for the Arizona Cardinals, going to stop by 40 minutes from now. We got to pick up where we left off yesterday, and that is the never-ending conversation about overtime in Super Bowl 58. And let me just recap real quickly. I did not fault Kyle Shanahan and still won't fault Kyle Shanahan for taking the ball first. In the moment, I thought it was the right decision. Sometimes I stand on an island, and it's not being stubborn. It's not me refusing to admit that I'm wrong. I just don't really understand the other side of the argument, why you wouldn't take the ball first. And I agreed with Shanahan. You take the ball first, you score a touchdown. Maybe he would have gone for two. I don't know. We'll get into that conversation in just a bit. But then you have the Chiefs getting the ball back. They march down the field. And I guess from what Andy Reid basically implied and what Chris Jones implied after the game, that if they matriculated the ball in the field and get in the end zone like they did, then if they needed to for the win, they would have gone for two as well. And then the game would have been over one way or another. But I understand the idea of Shanahan where it's possession, match, potentially, and then you go on out and you get the third possession and you're driving to win the game. So I don't crush Shanahan for making that decision. It didn't work out. But what I do crush Shanahan for is apparently none of his players knew what the heck overtime was in the postseason in the year of 2024. And I'm not saying, and I don't want to come off hypocritical here, I'm not saying like shame on the players, but the coaching staff needs to get their players up to date on how overtime works. Because it's one thing when Zach Gelb was in section 305 at the Super Bowl and didn't know that the clock meant diddly squat. But it's another thing when the players didn't know that, and also the players, I guess on both sides, depending on what you believe, didn't even know how the game could potentially end. Where we'll play a Kyle Juszczyk in just a second. We'll play a Eric Armstead in just a second. They had no damn clue. And these are guys that have been in the league for a long time, so things change. But they had no damn clue how overtime worked. Where it's actually ironic. Everyone in Kansas City, I think, knew how overtime worked besides McCole Hardman, where Mahomes said after the game, McCole didn't even know that we won the Super Bowl off that touchdown. And then today, McCole Hardman, I guess, wanted to clarify that and said, that's fake news, that he knew the rules. But that's what is abundantly alarming and abundantly clear. For the most part, it seemed like the overwhelming majority of players on the Chiefs knew what was going on, and they were prepared by their coach, because I was reading an article that they spent in the postseason at least one day about the overtime procedure. Like, and it was at least something that was on the itinerary for the day. Where the Niners, as tough as this is to believe, it was like, okay, we'll just approach it. We'll just cross that bridge when we get there. So there's a lot to crush Kyle Shanahan about for the mishandling of Super Bowl 58. Like not getting the ball to Christian McCaffrey more in the second half on the ground. And then also his players not being prepared to understand how overtime works. But I still give him a pass, and I still don't kill him, nor will I crush him for taking the ball first in overtime. With all that being said, and I'll circle back to this, I think the overtime rules need to change. And I was never a fan of changing them to where we are now, but I do think it should go back to you get the ball first, you go get a touchdown, you win the game, and then if you don't and you hold yourself to a field goal, the other team holds you to a field goal, then the other team gets the ball, and then they could go march down the field to score a touchdown, win the game. If they settle for a field goal, then it's next possession. Like, we all thought guaranteeing both teams a possession was really going to do much. But in reality, it feels like what this is going to turn into, and everyone just assumes now that whoever gets the ball is going to score a touchdown. Because people are killing Shanahan for taking the ball first. Well, let's say he didn't take the ball first. So then you're telling me what you're assuming is Mahomes gets the ball, he marches down the field, he gets a touchdown, then you get the ball back, you march down the field, you get a touchdown, and then it's just automatic that everyone's going to go for two? You know, I get it, because if you go for two in that spot, then you could go win the Super Bowl, and if you have to give the ball back and kick off, then you have to hold them to a field goal. But then here's what I would argue. Let's just say everyone's saying the strategy right now is to take the ball second. And you take the ball second, and then you go for two. Well, then if you go first, wouldn't you then just march down the field, score a touchdown, and then go for two? Now, you don't get the two. All the team then needs is a touchdown, an extra point, and you lose. I get that. But if you are taking the ball first, it seems like everyone is just guaranteeing that the team that gets the ball second is going to go get a touchdown and then going to go for two for the win. And it's easier said than done. I still think it's a gutsy decision. Now, people with analytics and everything, they'll tell me else. But if it's then just coming down to the team that gets the ball first, let's operate it this way. They get a touchdown and they kick the extra point. And the team that gets the ball second gets a touchdown, they go for two. So basically overtime, because everyone assumes a touchdown just going to occur, is just coming down to a 2-point conversion? Is that what these new overtime rules are basically coming down to? So guaranteeing each team a possession, what does it really do? That's why I am of the belief, and I said this after the Chiefs whined about it, right, when the Patriots beat the Chiefs. Oh, Mahomes didn't get the ball. And then it was the other way a year later where it was Josh Allen didn't get the ball, or 2 years later, Josh Allen didn't get the ball. And then the rules did change. I personally just believe, like, defense should matter. And I think we get into this line of thinking of, in the overtime, the defenses are gassed anyway, so everyone's just going to march down the field and get the touchdown. But that's not true. Because look what Kansas City did. They were bending on that first drive by the 49ers, but they didn't break. And Chris Jones went right through that line like a hot knife through butter and hit Purdy. And Purdy, who had three guys wide open, Jennings, Kittle, and McCaffrey, couldn't find anyone because you had one of the better defensive players in the league right in your mug. So I was never a fan of changing the overtime rules to begin with. Once they made that slight change, I would now go back to what they were a few years ago. And everyone understood what was happening. It is amazing, and I know it's new, and sometimes when it's new, it gets confusing. It was amazing how, like, no one knew what was going on Sunday. I don't know how many people actually will admit it that they didn't know what was going on. Because we thought the clock mattered. You understood that both teams got a possession regardless of what happened. But then the third one, if you got to the third one, then it just becomes sudden death. I would just truncate that and go back to what it was, which is very simple. You get the ball, you win the toss, you get the ball, you go score a touchdown, you win. You're Super Bowl champions. You get held to a field goal or you punt, then the other team could go win the game with a field goal if you punted or a touchdown if you settle for a field goal. I think that's better. I think that's easier to understand, and it's not as confusing to whatever occurred on Sunday in the Super Bowl. But let's go back to Kyle Juszczyk. This is a guy that went to an Ivy League school. If you would think anyone would know the overtime rules, it would be him. Kyle Juszczyk openly admits he didn't know the overtime rules.
You know what? I didn't even realize that the playoff rules were different in overtime, so I assumed you just want the ball because you score a touchdown and win, but I guess that's not the case. So I don't totally know the strategy there.
Something you guys have talked about?
No, we haven't talked about it, no.
How don't you talk about it? See, it'd be one thing if I was getting on the radio today, screaming and yelling about Shanahan taking the ball first. I'm not. And I've been more critical than others throughout the years in regards to Kyle Shanahan. But how does your team not know the rules? And I know you could say, oh, well, that's on the players. The players got to know the rules. You're playing the game. But we've seen before, there's been many times where the players haven't known the rules. Donovan McNabb once didn't know that you could tie an NFL game in the regular season. So how does Kyle Shanahan, especially with how meticulous coaches are and how diligent coaches are, how don't you prepare for the possibility of overtime? Look how many times coaches prepare for named things and then something crazy happens in a Super Bowl and you're like, oh, we were prepared for it. You didn't think there was a possibility that overtime could have happened? And the Kansas City Chiefs knew what was happening for the most part in overtime, and the San Francisco 49ers didn't have a damn clue. Here is Eric Armstead also admitting that they didn't know about the new OT rules.
I didn't even know about the new playoff overtime rule, so it was a surprise to me. I didn't even really even know what was going on in terms of that. They put on the scoreboard, and everyone was like, oh, even if you score, they get a chance still. So
that's wild. It really is. And the 49ers aren't like the Texans from this past year, where they were so dreadful for so long, and then it's like a surprise they get into the postseason. This team has been consistently there. They've been consistently there. You would think they'd be prepared for everything, even with the changes, and clearly they were not. And that is the worst reflection with all the decisions that Kyle Shanahan made in Super Bowl 58. His team not knowing the overtime rules, it actually may be his worst decision he's ever made as a head coach. And that even goes back to, or even an offensive coordinator, where he should have ran the football more when they were up against New England Patriots. You know, you could make the same case in that 3rd and 4 where you had Chris Jones knocking down the ball against the Chiefs in the first Super Bowl. They should have ran the ball there too. But how do you simply not have your players prepared for the moment? That's crazy. And there's no justification why the coach didn't have his players ready. That is a really bad reflection and a really bad look for Kyle Shanahan.
Now, I'm not saying this is not an excuse by any means, but isn't it interesting that there were no other playoff overtime games this postseason that would have kind of primed us as viewers and probably primed the coaches to kind of prep their teams for this situation? Usually there's at least one overtime game leading up to the Super Bowl. The fact that the Super Bowl with the brand new rules was the first one, that probably led to a lot more confusion, not just from the players, but the fans, coaches, everybody, because it was the first overtime game of these new rules.
And also, it's the second time ever in the history of the Super Bowl that there was even an overtime. And you almost had an overtime, Kansas City and Buffalo, right? That was closing in an overtime.
This year?
Yeah.
I think it was a little bit more. I feel like there was a little bit more.
Well, if Bass makes that kick, don't they go to overtime? I'm pretty sure, right? Between the Bills and the Chiefs, if you go back to that, if he makes that kick, I thought that was, if memory serves me right, yeah, it was 27-24. So that game, Mahomes could have got the ball back and then could have gone down and get a field goal because they were still like a little under 2 minutes left. But there was an opportunity where there could have been an overtime this year. But still, it's the biggest game of your life. You have 2 weeks to prepare. And this isn't a short week. This is 2 weeks to prepare. For crying out loud.
And all indications were that the officials went to both teams and instructed both teams.
Yeah.
So
you heard in the
everyone
stadium.
should have known. Everyone should have known.
Yeah. Here is Kyle Shanahan, and then we'll get into this decision with Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid. Kyle Shanahan said he wanted the ball first in overtime.
It's just something we talked about with, that none of us have a ton of experience of it, but we went through all the analytics and talked with those guys, and we just thought it'd be better. We wanted the ball third. If both teams matched and scored, we wanted to be the ones who had the chance to go win, and we got that field goal, so we knew we had to hold them to at least a field goal, and if we did, then we thought it was in our hands after that.
And then Andy Reid on Shanahan's decision to receive first in OT.
He's a pretty smart guy, so there's got to be a reason why he did that. Everybody's got their own philosophy on it.
Right.
And I get it. So I don't know if there's a right or wrong way. We felt that you kick off first, but that's I mean, that's here nor there. I mean, that's what we think, but listen, the guy's a great football coach.
You could just hear how much laughter Andy Reid is holding back. So after hearing Shanahan and then hearing Reid, let's go around the room here. What do you think the best decision is? Like, you win the toss, Samter, win these new overtime rules. What are you doing if you were the head coach?
Before this game, I would have done exactly what Shanahan did.
But do now.
However, now that we've discussed it and dissected it, it appears to me if you're the team that gets the ball second, the game is going to end after that second, for the most part, barring something else. The game is most likely going to end after that second possession.
Okay.
Right? Teams, either whether that means they're going forward on fourth down rather than kicking the tying field goal and giving the ball back to the first team, whether that means going for two, win or lose the game. It seems to me that the team that gets the ball second is not going to allow that second drive to end in a tie. And that might just be Andy Reid speaking, but it sounds like the analytics say if you get the ball second in that situation, you're going for it on fourth down rather than kicking the tying field goal. You're going for the 2-point conversion rather than tying extra point.
But didn't the analytics say, according to Shanahan, that it behooved them to go first? So, the thing is, you're giving them Mahomes an extra down because he was going to go for it unless they were in field goal range on probably every fourth down. Stu, what would you do here if you win the toss?
Yeah, I'm deferring. I want the ball second. I want to control. Yeah, I want to control, see what the other team does first, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, 7 points, touchdown, 8 points, and then that kind of gives you the control.
Do you think the team that would have, if the Niners would have scored, now with everything that we know, if their whole idea was to get to that third possession, do you think there's any chance they would have gone for two?
If they got the ball first and scored, I think they would have? Probably not. They probably would have kicked the extra point, I think.
I actually think that's the best strategy. You get the ball first, you get a touchdown, and you go for two. That may be what I think you should now do. I don't think there's a right answer on any of this. And as crazy as that sounds, that's what I think may have been the best strategy for the 49ers in that game. But that's not what, they got stopped. They had to settle for a field goal. With all things being said, look how confusing this is. And I guess the NFL wants chaos, and this is what they got when it goes into overtime. And it's the first time in the Super Bowl era that you got to overtime with these rules. Obviously, the 28-3 was in overtime, but it was different rules. But I kind of like that overtime better. I think that format is better and easier to understand. You win the toss, you take the ball, you score a touchdown, you win. If it's a field goal or anything else, then the other team gets a chance. That, to me, is just a whole lot easier than maybe the Super Bowl just coming down to a 2-yard, 2-point conversion play. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, 855-212-4CBS.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will get to some Adam Schefter sound on maybe Justin Fields getting traded to the Steelers in just a bit. But first, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Mike in Vancouver, Washington, next up on the Zach Gelb Show. Mike, what's happening?
Oh, not too much. My son and I are big Chiefs fans, my little 6-year-old.
Oh, awesome.
So we were all decked out. But what I would say really is, and people have not said this at all, which I'm surprised, that blocked PAT was really the turning point, I think.
Well,
We're running out of time, and they would have had to go for a touchdown there.
Well, hold on. You're a Chiefs fan, correct? That's what you just said?
Yes, but it was a good game.
Wait, no, but what I'm saying is you don't think even if they had that extra point that was made, that wasn't blocked, and it was up by 4, that Mahomes wouldn't have found a way to get a touchdown at the end of regulation?
I think he would have gotten the touchdown, too. I'm just saying it would have been different.
Well, hey, your phone line's not that great, Mike. Hopefully you and your son enjoyed another championship, and there's going to be more coming, so he's going to be like me. He's going to grow up in an era of just being spoiled with championship after championship. That's why the PAT thing makes no sense to me. Anyone blaming Jake Moody for getting the PAT blocked, I just don't see the argument. For 2 reasons. One, how about all the other kicks that he made when your offense stalled. There was one point for a little bit where he had the longest kick made in Super Bowl history until Bucker made it from 2 yards more out. The other thing is, once again, even if he made that extra point and they were up by 4 at the end of the game and everything plays out the way that it played out, Mahomes moved that ball so quickly down the field. If he knew he had to get a touchdown, he would have got the touchdown. The turning point of the Super Bowl was not a blocked PAT. The turning point of the Super Bowl was when the Niners were dominating and they felt like they were the better team and it looked like they were the better team, and Kansas City was making mistake after mistake where you go back to the first half, Reed and Kelsey were fighting, or Kelsey was fighting Reed. You had a Mahomes interception. You had a Pacheco fumble. You had a penalty coming out of the 2-minute warning. There were a lot of mistakes that were made, and it did not feel like Kansas City was ever going to get a lead in that game. So the turning point was when there was that bounce, and that fortuitous bounce on the punt that hit a 49ers player, and then McLeod had to go dive for the football. He didn't get the football, and then the next play later, Marquez Valdez-Scantling was in the end zone. That was the turning point of the game because the Chiefs stubbed their toe. They stumbled all throughout a good stretch of this game, and they still found a way to get the lead. That is when I knew that the Niners were in trouble because there was many instances where the Niners could have put the Chiefs away and they weren't able to do so. Like, I could think of 3 or 4 other things before we get to the PAT. Not getting the touchdown at the end of regulation. Not getting the touchdown in overtime. I can't fault Jake Moody on the blocked PAT and say that's the turning point of the Super Bowl.
When it comes to that muff punt, right, everyone was kind of giving McLeod credit.
Did you see that, by the way?
Yeah, I saw it right away. As soon as I saw him going after the ball.
I was teasing because you missed out on the end of the Super Bowl because you were having to do
overtime.
daddy
I missed
daycare.
overtime. Anything happened in regulation, I caught that. That's nonsense.
Are you even allowed to talk about this? Can we consider you an expert when you missed the ending of the Super Bowl for your team?
From quarter 1 to quarter 4, I can give you all the details.
Yeah.
And like 4 plays into overtime. I know all about that screen pass from Christian McCaffrey. But So we saw McLeod. He made a very quick split-second decision, and it was a brilliant play. However, jump on the damn ball. He tried to pick it up and run with it after he saw it. Jump on the damn ball. Everyone's lauding McLeod for noticing that it hit one of his guys. Get on the damn ball. That's on McLeod. He's running after the ball, trying to pick it up while he's running. Jump on the ball.
But you do see a lot of times where someone will drop the ball or something will happen like that, and they're still able to scoop it up and make a play out of it. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I was impressed at McLeod even in the moment because, like, no one in the everyone in the stadium's reaction, at least in my section, was, what are you doing when you're having that Peter play, which is get away from the football? What are you doing since you're signaling get away from the football, then jumping into it? And then later on the broadcast, because they didn't realize that originally in the broadcast, I guess they showed it back and they showed that it hit off a 49ers player, which then led him to making that decision to go try to scoop it up. But I think that's easier said than done, but we've seen it go both ways.
Yeah, I mean, listen, whether the broadcast or the people in the audio or the at the stadium realized it, McLeod realized it. And so that's all that matters, that McLeod realized it. And once he realized it, just jump on the damn ball. At that point, you're not trying to make a play. You're trying to secure the ball. That's it.
But I could also argue then you jump on the ball, then the ball just, bounces up into the air, and then you had a bunch of Chiefs players around him. I think he imagined in that split second that you have, you've seen a lot of returners before trust their hands and then scoop it up, and they're still able to find a way to make a play even though it gives you a heart attack. Let's get to Adam Schefter. This was on the Pat McAfee show. Here is Shefty talking about the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers at the quarterback position.
We know that Pittsburgh's going to go out and get some type of quarterback, whether that's Ryan Tannehill, whether that's Russell Wilson, whether that's Justin Fields. Mike Tomlin's a big fan of Justin Fields. We'll keep that in mind during the offseason and the coming weeks. But they're not just going to leave it as Kenny Pickett, his starting job. Mike Tomlin made that very clear.
So Trubisky gets shown the door yesterday. Mitch Trubisky, once again. So he gets shown the door. You have Mason Rudolph. He's still there. Is he under contract? Could we check that up if Mason Rudolph is under contract for this year? And then you got Kenny Pickett. But you have Schefter going on the McAfee show saying they're going to bring someone else in. Well, if you're bringing someone else in, I think it further shows what's the
he's an unrestricted free agent once free agency starts.
Okay. So you're going to have to bring somebody in unless, like, if you're just bringing back Mason Rudolph, I don't think anyone believes, even though he played well down the stretch, that Rudolph is going to usurp Kenny Pickett in this offseason as the starting quarterback, and the Steelers are not going to rock and roll with their starting quarterback, who was their first number one pick in their draft class 2 years ago. I don't think anyone actually believes that. Now, you can make a case for it. Well, people think that should happen, but I don't think it will happen. But it looks like, at least from that report, and it sounds like that they're going to bring in a veteran, or you're going to bring in someone that has been in the league. Well, if that's the case, what does that really say about Kenny Pickett? I don't think competition is a bad thing, but if you bring in Russell Wilson, if you bring in Justin Fields, I think Russell Wilson's better than Kenny Pickett. I think Justin Fields is better than Kenny Pickett. Now, Ryan Tannehill has just been in that role where he just got benched for the youngster. And I don't think people are going to be dying for Ryan Tannehill to be their starting quarterback. So you could bring in a Ryan Tannehill, and he could be your insurance. And he's been in that before. Remember when Mariota was the guy in Tennessee, and then Tannehill replaced him and ended up getting a 1 seed, ended up going to an AFC championship in his tenure with Tennessee. But like the Steelers, they go make a move for Russell Wilson, and it would be cheap because of how much money the Broncos still owe him. And that new contract didn't even start yet. Well, Russ is then going to be the starter in Pittsburgh. You go make a trade for Justin Fields and give up like a second-round pick? Well, then guess what? Justin Fields is going to be the starter in Pittsburgh. And I know that Tomlin appears to be like a loyal guy, but the last few years, your defense has been ready. I know they suffered some injuries this year, and your offense has been really bad. You have Deontay Johnson. You have Pickens. Warren and Harris are a solid 1-2 punch. You now need a quarterback. And I don't think Kenny Pickett in year number 3 is going to take this big jump and this big step because I don't think Kenny Pickett is a good quarterback. I don't. So I think the best thing would be is to go out there and trade for Justin Fields because I do believe that Justin Fields was screwed over by the Bears. He'd be going to a much better organization in the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Justin Fields has a higher ceiling than Kenny Pickett. But if you don't get Justin Fields, would you want to take a 1-year flyer on Russell Wilson? Because you would think Russ would be a 1-year deal and it would be cheap because his career is on the line. And even with Russell Wilson's career being on the line, I still think it's a better option than putting Kenny Pickett out there in year number 3. Because I have a tough time seeing this turning out to be a good ending for Kenny Pickett. If Pickett is the starting quarterback for the Steelers this year, I feel very confident in saying that this will be the final season of Kenny Pickett as a starting quarterback with the yellow and black. I'm not a believer in Kenny Pickett. So you need to go upgrade the quarterback position this offseason. Field should be priority number 1 out of the options that are potentially available. And if not Justin Fields, maybe you go out and get a Kirk Cousins. I would throw Kirk Cousins in that conversation. And if not Kirk, then Russell Wilson. Either way, however you dice it up, all 3 are better than Kenny Pickett entering the year of 2024 in the NFL. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Justin Pugh is going to join us on the other side. Update time first. Let's go to the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility and great pay and benefits? Go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. The college football playoff will remain on ESPN, reportedly a 6-year extension worth nearly $8 billion. The Bucs got off to a rough start under Doc Rivers, but have now posted back-to-back wins after clobbering the defending champs last night. They'll look to build on that performance when they host the Heat this evening. Rivers was brought in to clear up the deficiencies on defense, and that remains his priority.
Don Shula, if you ever read his book, if you have time, it's a good book. But he always talked about the fastest player is the one that doesn't have to think. And the more we can get our guys to know exactly what we're doing, they can play at full speed. And that's what we're trying to do, simplify so we can play with fire.
The Celtics are 6.5 games up on Milwaukee, sitting in the top spot in the East, and go for their 5th straight tonight in Brooklyn. Jorge Soler off the market, signing a 3-year deal with the Giants worth $42 million. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, The JR Sport Brief, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
The Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD, veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. This week's player is Chiefs linebacker Nick Bolton. Man, he had back-to-back incredible Super Bowls. But in Sunday's Super Bowl victory, Bolton had 13 tackles and played a part in the Chiefs holding the 49ers to just 3 of 12 on third down conversions. Bolton also led all players in tackles during the playoffs with 40. And now joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Spent part of this season with the New York Giants. We know he started his career in the Big Apple with Big Blue and then had a stop with the Arizona Cardinals. That, of course, is Justin Pugh, kind enough to join us right now. Justin, thanks for the time as always. How you been?
I'm doing well, Zach. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. So when we get to the Super Bowl, the first thing everyone's talking about is overtime. And it was crazy to me how the Niners did not know, pretty much their players admitted after the game, how the overtime worked. Were you all caught up to date just wondering, I know your team wasn't in the playoffs this year, but how these overtime rules in the playoffs have changed in the last few years?
Yeah, knowing they change obviously is a paramount part of being in the game itself. And the Chiefs players came out and said, Andy Reid talked about it in the preseason. He had been harping on this. So, I'm a huge fan of Kyle Shanahan. I think he's an unbelievable coach. For him not to cover that scenario, at the very least, he should have some analytics guy that's giving him the rules before going into overtime, where he can quickly at least tell Fred Warner, his captain, what they want to do and what the strategy should be. So that was an epic failure on San Francisco's part. It's not rules that we have talked about. I played in the NFL when you could still have the ties, and if you just get any points, you win. So guys were even trying to figure out that you could tie in regular season. So once that got squared away, I think goes to show that coaches need to do a better job of keeping the players up to date, especially with the rules changing every year. Like, we'll have the refs come in and give us a basic breakdown, but you're not doing a deep dive in the strategy and the percentages like we should be.
The other thing, too, is everyone's talking about the decision to take the ball first. Personally, when it happened, I didn't have a problem with it, so I'm not going to slam Shanahan 2 days later. My problem is more so his guys just not knowing the rule. What did you make of his decision to take the ball first?
Well, I was sitting there with a few friends and a buddy of mine. He's more of an analytics guy than I am. And he's like, that was such a stupid move. Why would the 49ers not take it? I mean, Patrick Mahomes had just drove down the field, had a lengthy drive. San Francisco's defense was tired. In my head, I'm like, if I'm San Francisco and I know what type of offense I'm going to run, screen, chew up the clock, exactly what they did, I like the decision for San Francisco to give their defense a break, let their offense go onto the field. But when you look at the scenarios, you look at the statistics, I guess now looking back on it, maybe San Francisco should have, kicked off, played defense first. But, you question it. If San Francisco scores and then gets an interception, we're not talking about it. If you win the game, all those things are forgiven. So I think we're harping on it because they lost the game.
Yeah, and I feel like now, since it's such an offensive league, people just assume you get the ball first, you're going to get a touchdown, you kick the extra point, then the other team gets the ball back, they march down the field, they get a touchdown, and they get a 2-point conversion. So if that's how most people think it's going to play out, I know it didn't in the Super Bowl. I kind of like the old overtime playoff rules better, where you get the ball first, you score a touchdown, you win. If you don't, then the other team gets a chance to answer. I thought the old overtime rules in the postseason were better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like those rules, but there's more to it than just football. Is what I've found out. I started my own podcast called Net Worth with Justin Pugh, and dollars drive the league. So you go to it and having the teams having equitable shares of the ball and equitable chances to score, it plays well into, I think, a lot of the things that are involved in our league that weren't previously, like gambling or fantasy or things of that nature. The game is being pushed in that direction.
Talking to Justin Pugh right now. So I know you have the podcast. We've talked about it before. I know you could now podcast and also play. Clearly, you were in the news this year when you came off the couch and you went right into that Giants locker room. Is your intention to play football this upcoming season, or was that it for you in the NFL this past year?
I left the door open. I talked to Joe Shane. We had some great conversations at the end of the season. I held up my end of the bargain, and so did he. I came in and did exactly what I said I was going to do: provide veteran leadership, help deal with the media when you're having a season like we were having. It's tough dealing with the media. I came in and handled that and set a great foundation going forward of like how an offensive line and how veterans and how to be a pro. So I think I did all the things that I said. Obviously, we came up a little bit short. We did fight through there throughout the middle of the season and actually had a chance to make the playoffs. And it was something I really enjoyed. Had a lot of fun being around the guys. I was 10 years older than most of them. But I still feel young. I still feel like I can play. I still feel like I can get a full off season under my belt and come into the season more physically ready to play football. I got thrown into the fire a little bit this last year.
So the Giants overachieved in year one with Brian Daboll, and then this past year they regressed. We don't know if Saquon will be back. Daniel Jones appears to be their guy, at least for one more season. A lot of people are going to question and call this a make-or-break year for Brian Daboll. You being in that building, do you sense, Justin Pugh, that team is moving in the right direction? They could find a way to regroup and get back to what the first year looked like rather than what last year just looked like?
Yeah, I think they definitely can get back to that. And if you look at the 2 years side by side of how many close victories they had in that year one, starting from the first game of the season, I remember them playing the Tennessee Titans, going for it. I think they went for it on a 2-point conversion. They won so many one possession games, last minute drives, and then this last year we lost those games. We lost the game to the Bills. We should have won. The Jets, I think we were, at the end of the game should have won that one. You look at, the Rams game and all these games down the road where we had a chance to pull it off at the end. We win those games, we sneak into the playoffs like the Green Bay Packers, and no one's talking about, oh, how, this is a regressed year or things of that nature. So quickly the NFL can show you that you win and lose those close games. That's going to be a determining factor on the success of the season. So the Giants can definitely make a few moves this offseason and get right back into the playoff hunt, obviously starting with Saquon Barkley and his contract situation.
Do you think it would be a mistake for the Giants not to get this deal done and a long-term deal done with Saquon?
Which hat do I have on right now? A friend hat, a fan hat, a Joe Shane and a GM hat. Which hat am I wearing?
Put the GM hat on since you're big on the finances these days with the podcast.
I'm big into the business of football. So obviously I think the Giants should approach him with a contract that they feel is fair, that gets the job done. Saquon feels otherwise, he'll voice that and say, hey, I'm not going to sign this deal. And then there's one thing that's beautiful about our country and our league. It's a free market. So I think if the deal isn't equitable on Saquon's behalf and he says, hey, if we do another tag, we're going to have some issues. The one thing you don't want to have is an unhappy player. So I almost, for Saquon's benefit, go test the market, see what else is out there. If you have the ability to make more, go somewhere and make more money. This is a business. Saquon, you can only play this position for a short amount of time. As a fan now, knowing that Saquon's been the heart and soul of the team, seeing it firsthand and as a friend, I think the Giants should get the deal done. But I realize the business has to come first, and I realize that's a major component. So I understand what the back and forth, and it's honestly gets me excited. I love it.
Justin Pugh here with us. So you got to see it from two different perspectives. I know that you grew up in the Philadelphia area, so you had a lot of friends growing up that were Eagles fans. I remember the whole draft story when you got drafted by the Giants. To see the Eagles be 10-1, and then you saw them twice down the stretch. You played them well the first time, then you beat them going away the second time. How just kind of startling and alarming was it to see the Eagles go from 10-1 then only one win down the stretch and bounced out of the postseason in the wild card weekend.
The Eagles team was different this year. I also played them last year when they went on their Super Bowl run, and they were just dominant. Their teams weren't hanging close; they were blowing them out. Even though they were 10-1, there were signs that things weren't going the way that they might have thought. I mean, I just look back to the New England game, the first one of the season. I was on the couch on my love sack, and obviously I didn't get to how to plug it in there. But so I got to watch a little bit more football the first 5 weeks of the season, and the Eagles weren't blowing teams out; they were letting teams hang around. And then there were starting things come out in the media and defensive coordinator changing. And it was a weird dynamic with the Eagles. They clearly weren't the same team. And then when we played them, you felt that they weren't the same team. They weren't as confident in one another. Offense and defense were kind of arguing at times. And I think the way you look at what the Eagles did this offseason, and they're a great team and they have great infrastructure in place, but Sirianni had to make some moves. Moving on from the defensive and offensive coordinator shows you that things weren't right from within. I still think they have one of, if not the best offensive line coaches in Jeff Stoutland. I'm confident the Eagles will be able to make a run. But even so, you see a guy like Hassan Reddick, who I play with in Arizona. I think he just requested a trade. So that starts to show you there's some things internally going on that we might not know about.
Well, let me ask you about the Cardinals real quickly. And Justin Pugh's here with us today on behalf of Lovesack. And also make sure you check out his podcast as well called Net Worth with Justin Pugh, where he talks sports business, real estate investing, and finance. Your confidence level with Kyler Murray this past year came back. Gannon did a good job, and you're number one with not a lot of talent around, everyone in that building. What do you kind of make of Kyler Murray as a quarterback?
No one wants to talk about tanking. It's like a taboo word to be thrown around in the NFL. And you're not tanking. You have to go out there and spend the amount of money you have to spend. But the Cardinals did the bare minimum. So I don't know if you want to call that tanking or what we want to say. They did exactly what they needed to do this year. They went out and proved that they have fight, and the coaches are great, and the players they have are the guys you want to have moving forward. But there is some positions where you have to admit that the Cardinals didn't load up with the talent that they would if, say, they were the Kansas City Chiefs trying to make a run for the Super Bowl. They didn't go all out this year. They held back a little bit. They traded, had some picks. I think the Arizona Cardinals continue to turn it around. I think Gannon's the right man for the job. He has energy. I didn't get to play for him, but I've met him a few times being out here in Arizona. I think they're a few pieces away on defense, going out and loading up on some pass rushers and D linemen. I think that's a move they can make. Obviously, they hit on Patrick Johnson. He looks great at right tackle. Unfortunately, left tackle DJ Humphries tore his ACL. So Kelvin Beachum will step up into that role. And I think you go get a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., and things really start to shake out. James Conner's a monster. Trey McBride came onto the scene. He looks great. It's getting some more interior D linemen and some pass rushers. Maybe Hassan Reddick. There could be a move there where the Cardinals go and use some of that draft capital and bring Hassan and let him do what he should have done from the beginning in Arizona, because he's an all-pro type of guy.
Once again, Justin Pugh has a podcast called Network with Justin Pugh, where he talks sports business, real estate, investing, and finance. You can follow him on Instagram, JustinPugh68, Twitter, @Justin Pugh. And make sure to find your perfect love sack or locate a showroom near you. Visit lovesack.com. That's LOVESAC.com. Justin, appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much. Be well.
Thanks a lot, Zach. I'll talk to you soon.
There you go. Justin Pugh joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We're going to do a little overreaction, proper reaction off the 2023 NFL season when we return in 5 minutes right here on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, and away we go. Hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. The final week of the NFL season just happened. Man, that's a miserable time. It really is. That just stinks. College football, dunzo. NFL, dunzo. But quite frankly, especially with that second window open for the transfer portal, which happens in April, and you have the combine right around the corner. You got free agency right around the corner with the new league year beginning in March. And then you also do have the NFL draft. We're really not that far away from football being right back in the news. And there are some things to currently monitor, and there are some storylines that bare minimum are going to carry us from now until like the end of the month with the combine. I don't know about you guys. The combine, I like the combine from it provides content, but the actual combine drives me crazy because you have guys that put in 3 or 4 years of work in a college program, and then they don't run a 40 time fast enough. Or you have this BS with that S2 cognitive test, whatever it's called, that used to basically be what was valued with the Wonderlic. Like, those little small moments can make or break a prospect, and you see it both ways. Someone runs a blazing quick 40, and the next thing you know, they're elevating and shooting up the draft board, and then someone tanks a 40 after they just had a great 3-4 year career, and then they plummet. And also, the other thing is, and we even kind of saw this when Tony Pauline joined us. That was one of my biggest takeaways from Super Bowl week. So Tony Pauline joined us the week before, and he was at the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. And he said he's heard that Michael Penix Jr. doesn't have a great work ethic. And then when I pressed him on it, his follow-up didn't really even make that much sense. So we had Michael Penix Jr. at the Super Bowl, so naturally I thought I had to bring it up to him, and he dismissed it. But I kind of side with Michael Penix Jr. on this one, just because all we heard about this dude was work ethic, work ethic, work ethic. And you don't know who told Tony Pauline that information, if maybe they were trying to use that information to kind of slander Michael Penix's name, so you have him fall a little bit in the NFL draft. And then maybe that person with the information, his team actually wants him, but they need him to fall a little bit. And the quarterbacks will drive a lot of the conversation from now until the draft, with guys like Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, and a few more being available, whether that's via free agency or trade. But in the NFL draft, all we know, bare minimum, is that there's going to be 3 quarterbacks that go in the first round. And those 3 quarterbacks, in whatever order you want, will be Caleb Williams, will be Drake May, will be Jaden Daniels. And then how many other quarterbacks creep into the first round? From the J.J. McCarthy's of the world to the Michael Penix Jr.'s of the world. Can Spencer Rattler find a way to shoot up some draft boards? Bo Nix as well. I would think that 4 go in the first round, but right now only 3, I think, are locks to go in the first round. So those are some things coming right around the corner in the next few months, especially in the NFL front, that will carry the way. And college was just so crazy with all the movement in the coaching cycle. And now we'll see if there's any other changes in April when that second wave of the transfer portal does open back up. All righty, let's get to a little overreaction, proper reaction right now.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy.
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
All righty, Big Mike, CBS. What do you got cooking today?
I got a lot of things cooking, so much so that I actually have to staple the 2 pages together. This might be the longest overreaction, proper reaction in history,
You're like
but there's
Andy
a lot
Reid.
of stuff to get to.
You're like Andy Reid with that play calling sheet with how many papers that you have in front of you today.
You know what? Comparing me to the greatest coach in NFL history is absolutely an honor, so thank you, sir.
No, he's not right now the greatest coach in NFL history.
Well, we can debate that.
Well, you can. What about the first 20 years?
Well, listen, we can have plenty of conversations.
No, I'm just saying. Here's the thing
do
that's
you want
funny
to have
to
the
me.
conversation now?
No, I don't.
I can certainly do it,
but
and I can
because
make the argument.
I want to get to overreaction, proper reaction. But here's why it's a stupid argument. I'm not saying he's not one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, but it just shows you it's better to have success later in your career than for the majority of your career. And I know what Andy Reid did was very special. He got to a bunch of NFC title games and a Super Bowl in Philadelphia. But for 20 years, Andy Reid was the guy that was good coach, even a great coach, but he can't win the big game. And now he gets Patrick Mahomes, and it's, oh, he's the greatest coach of all time. Where Bill Belichick dominated the NFL and kicked Andy Reid's ass for 2 decades in playoff games, in Super Bowls. But now he doesn't have success without Tom Brady, and everyone's like, oh, Belichick's a bum, and Andy Reid's great, but let's just forget 20 years before that. But anyway, let's
just
get
say
to
Andy
overreaction.
Reid has had success with 3 different quarterbacks in 2 different cities, where Bill Belichick only had success with 1 quarterback in one city.
Well, if we're saying that Andy Reid had success with Alex
Donovan
Smith,
McNabb?
well, hold on. With Alex Smith, then
Sure.
Bill Belichick had success with Matt Castle. He won 11 games with Matt Castle. If that's just the bar of success.
That was a 1-year thing. Alex Smith was there for multiple years with Andy Reid.
Did he not make the playoffs 1 year with Mac Jones? Did he not? I know the others was a bad job by Belichick.
He was also terrible in Cleveland, too.
Well, he made the playoffs and beat Bill Parcells in a playoff game.
And he also had a losing record in Cleveland. And he also had a losing record in New England before Tom Brady took over, despite Drew Bledsoe being his quarterback.
1 year.
1 year and 2 games.
And who drafted Tom Brady?
He's great at drafting. Hey, he drafted a great quarterback. We're talking about coaches. We're not talking about who drafted. Yeah, sure. He did a great job with that. Andy Reid also developed Patrick Mahomes. So there's that.
Okay. And without Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid would have 0 championships. I could just, if we're gonna play that game with Belichick, without Brady, he's nothing.
Sure.
You know, without Patrick Mahomes, Reid has nothing.
Just saying, Andy Reid had much more success without his superstar, all-time great quarterback. Bill Belichick did not.
Then hold on. When Andy Reid had his all-time great quarterback and Belichick had his all-time great quarterback, who won? Who won?
Sure.
In Andy Reid's building in Kansas City.
Sure. Listen, if there's any knock, that could be it. But Reid has had more success over a longer period of time with multiple franchises and various different quarterbacks.
He's not had longer. So Belichick dominated the NFL for 20 years. But anyway, get to overreaction, proper reaction. You didn't even watch the overtime of the Super Bowl. See, that's the trump card with Samter for the rest of any argument, because a good husband move made you miss the end of the Super Bowl because your DVR wasn't working.
Listen, if you want to question my decision-making, but my ability to talk about the history of the NFL has nothing to do with my inability to watch the last 5 minutes of the Super Bowl.
You can't talk about the history. You didn't watch the last overtime.
You know what, though? I've gone back now and I've watched it, so now we're good. I just didn't watch it live.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, the Bears hold the number 1 overall pick, and reports say the Commanders are considering a major trade package to move up from number 2 to draft Caleb Williams. Other rumors speculate the Steelers might be interested in Justin Fields, which we talked about earlier. Overreaction, proper reaction. The Bears will trade Fields and draft Caleb Williams.
That is a proper reaction. They're going to draft Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick, and they will absolutely trade Justin Fields. And you could start the speculation. Will it be Atlanta? I don't think they would trade him in division to Minnesota, but Minnesota probably should come calling and see what it would take. And then also you had Schefter throwing out the Pittsburgh Steelers the other day. So that is a proper reaction.
Now, the Lions had a 17-point lead over the Niners in the NFC title game before blowing the game. However, heading into the offseason, only 4 starters are unrestricted free agents in Detroit, and none of them are any of the main core members of the team. So overreaction, proper reaction. The Lions can win the Super Bowl in 2024.
Absolutely, that's a proper reaction, because the teams in the NFC, I don't know how many teams I trust. I don't trust the Eagles right now. I don't trust the Cowboys. You look inside the NFC North, I like the direction that the Packers are moving in. You go inside the South, I don't think any of those teams could win a Super Bowl next season. And inside the NFC West, I like what the Rams are doing. I think they could be a Super Bowl contender. And the 49ers now have a lot of money invested into some of their top players, and they're going to have to trim some with the salary cap perspective. So I think this is right there for the taking. And I do believe that the Lions can win the Super Bowl next year, at bare minimum be in the Super Bowl. So I would go, that's a proper reaction.
Now, to the surprise of many, the Eagles retained Nick Sirianni, while the Cowboys kept Mike McCarthy at the helm. However, reports indicated that some unnamed owners and GMs have already reached out to Bill Belichick about possible coaching jobs after next season. Talk about putting the cart before the horse, but overreaction, proper reaction. Neither Sirianni nor McCarthy will be coaching their respective teams after next season.
I'm going to say I think McCarthy's done at the end of this year. He is a lame duck head coach, where if you don't get to an NFC title game, I think you are donezo. I do believe the Eagles like the control of Sirianni that they have with Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. So I think it's more likely that McCarthy doesn't get brought back than it is Sirianni. And McCarthy's entering the final year of his deal. But you know what? I think the Eagles are going to have some problems in that locker room, and it's going to continue even with the talent. So I'm going to say that's a proper reaction that neither Sirianni or McCarthy will be coaching their respective teams after 2024.
Now, Tua had a breakout season for the Dolphins, leading the NFL in passing and finishing top 5 in completion percentage, touchdowns, and QB rating. However, as we discussed multiple times on the show, Tua fell short in a lot of the biggest games, including an awful performance in the playoffs in their loss against the Chiefs. So overreaction, proper reaction. Tua Tagovailoa is a franchise quarterback.
That is an overreaction. So Tua is a good quarterback. I would not call Tua a great quarterback. And I know people will tell me about his prodigious stats from this past year. Name me the big game that they won this season outside of the Cowboys game. Who the Cowboys are notoriously known for being the drama Dallas choking Cowboys.
Yeah, who would choke first, the Dolphins or the Cowboys in that game?
Yeah, so that was the only big game that the Dolphins won this year. And Dallas was overrated all throughout the year. So Tua stayed healthy this year, which is great to see. But on the field, in the big moments, in the big spots, he didn't lead his team to victory. So I think that's a guy, when you give him the contract that he'll inevitably get, I don't believe that's going to have a good ending with the Miami Dolphins.
We've talked about him a bunch already today. Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback selected in the first round of the 2022 draft, but has thrown just 13 touchdown passes in 24 starts, being benched multiple times by Mike Tomlin throughout the season. Overreaction, proper reaction. It's actually still too early for the Steelers to give up on Pickett.
Oh, that's an overreaction. I've seen enough. I know he has all these game-winning drives, but when you watch him play the position, I just don't think he has what it takes to be a franchise quarterback in this league. You have a defense that's starting to get a little bit older, but still a very solid defense, and you have some good young offensive players. You need a quarterback that's ready to go. We talked about potentially getting Kirk Cousins. We talked about potentially getting Justin Fields, even Russell Wilson on a cheap one-year deal. I think all three of those guys are vastly better than what Kenny Pickett is right now or what he can be in the future. So when you say it's still too early for the Steelers to give up on Pickett, I would go overreaction.
After a slow start, the Bills got hot, winning their final 5 games to steal the AFC East from Miami. However, after beating the Steelers in the playoffs, Josh Allen and Buffalo flamed out once again against my Chiefs. Overreaction, proper reaction. The Bills' window for winning a title has closed.
I'm going to say overreaction because the reason why I say that, I look at Super Bowl contending teams in the AFC entering next season. Chiefs would be one. Then the team right behind them would be the Cincinnati Bengals because they've done it before. You just got to keep Burrow healthy. And then number 3 would still be the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen. I think those are your 3 best teams right now entering next season, and the 3 quarterbacks that I have the most confidence in the AFC entering next season. So, yeah, they still have to find a way to win a big game. Allen has been there. He's played well. McDermott has not done a good job in these big games. His defense has let him down as well. So I'm not going to say it's likely that they go win a Super Bowl, but as long as you have Josh Allen at quarterback, I think you'll be right in the mix. So I'm not going to say proper reaction. I'm going to go overreaction. You say the Bills' window for winning a title is closed.
Lamar Jackson became just the 11th player ever to win multiple MVPs, but once again fell short in the playoffs despite the dominant regular season. In 6 career postseason games, Lamar is completing just 57% of his passes with only 6 passing touchdowns with 6 picks, though he does have 300-yard rushing games. Overreaction, proper reaction. Lamar Jackson will never win a Super Bowl.
Last year you asked me this question, I would have yelled at you. I would say this is a ridiculous question because I didn't think there was enough sample size. This year, you're the number 1 seed. Teams are vulnerable in the AFC. You crushed the 49ers in the NFC. You were clearly the best team in football. And you played, one good half of football? And that was not even up against the Chiefs. It was against the Texans, who no one thought was going to be in the second round of the postseason when the season started. So you played one good half of football in the four halves that you had in the postseason. And in the AFC Championship game, it's not like Kansas City did anything special on offense. They scored 17 points. And anytime you had a chance to get back in the game, you couldn't do it. So Lamar Jackson will never win a Super Bowl. I hate to say it, but I think that's a proper reaction and especially with how much they use him in the run game, and they went away from that this year. Like, this was the year to keep it simple and do what you do best. And Monken going away from that wasted their season in that AFC title game.
Kirk Cousins is going to be the most sought-after QB free agent this offseason, despite missing 9 games with injury. While his future in Minnesota is in doubt, our buddy Justin Jefferson told us last week on Radio Row he wants his signal caller back.
I have no idea. I know I talked to Kirk, of course. I know Kirk wants to be with his team. I know that he has done everything in his power to be out there and to do well for us, and he's been doing great for us. He's been putting up tremendous numbers for us. So I would like to have him back. Of course, having that connection with him for 4 years is tough to regain that with a new quarterback.
It feels like it's a breakup. Like you don't want it to end. It's good time, but it feels like it's coming to an end.
I hope not.
Overreaction, proper reaction. Kirk Cousins will be playing elsewhere in 2024.
Yeah, I said that directly to Justin Jefferson, as you just heard, that it feels like that's it for Kirk Cousins. I think the front office tried to, last year from everything you heard, try to move up in that draft to go trade for Anthony Richardson. Maybe they'll try to do that again if a quarterback falls, but if not, I don't think they're giving another long-term deal to Kirk Cousins. It could be a mistake, but I do believe Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell are kind of operating under the belief that they're going to be without Kirk Cousins for next season. So Cousins will be playing somewhere else in 2024. I would go proper reaction. By the way, you want to know why you're wrong in the Andy Reid-Belichick debate real quickly?
Oh, going back to that.
Shep just tweeted me. And Shep is on the side of Andy Reid. So if you want to argue on the side of Shep, I thought you were almost just about to curse. Then go ahead. If you want to join Shep.
I need to talk to Hickey and find out where Hickey stands, because if Hickey can even out to Shep, then I'm right back on an even playing field.
I think Hickey would probably take Andy Reid because he hates Bill Belichick.
Oh, man. I have to find out about Hickey.
The blind leading the blind here. You don't want to get in line on that.
Okay, now the Bengals missed the playoffs without Joe Burrow under center, but since he entered the offseason with question marks at wide receiver, Jamar Chase is eligible for an extension, while T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are both free agents. Now, reports today say that T. Higgins is likely to get the franchise tag.
Which they should.
Proper reaction, the Bengals do have to keep Chase and Higgins if they want to contend for a Super Bowl.
Long term, you're saying?
Yeah.
I'll go overreaction. They have to keep Jamar Chase. Now, T. Higgins is an excellent number 2 wide receiver. You could let him go after franchise tagging him for 1 year, and you play it out because you have a team that's capable of winning a Super Bowl, and you could draft someone else to complement Jamar Chase. It would be great if they could keep them both, but I don't think they have to keep both. Chase and Burrow, you can't separate them. Higgins, unfortunately, you could afford to lose him. And as long as you're able to protect Joe Burrow, they'll have a chance against any team in the NFL.
Last one, my former team, the Jets. Their season ended after just 4 plays when Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles. Gang Green has 5 starters hitting free agency, along with their leading sacker, Bryce Huff, who apparently thinks he belongs in that top 5 conversation with Micah Parsons. But let's get to that another time. Overreaction, proper reaction. The Jets will make the playoffs as long as Rodgers stays healthy.
I'm going to go overreaction. I got to see what that offensive line looks like. I'm an easy person with football.
The good news is 2 of them are probably going to be gone, so maybe they can revamp the whole thing.
Well, under Joe Douglas's tenure, we've been hearing about this offensive line being revamped for now like 4 years, his entire tenure. He hasn't revamped the offensive line one damn time correctly.
He's revamped it, but it hasn't gone well.
Yeah,
a lot of injuries. Mekhi Becton's been injured. Elijah Vera Tucker's been injured.
Okay, that happens in the NFL.
Yeah.
This offensive line has not gotten better. It has sucked.
They're definitely drafting another one, number 10 in the draft.
I hope they take a quarterback. How great would it be? At number 10 in the draft, the Jets select J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan.
Listen, if Jaden Daniels falls or something, maybe, but J.J. McCarthy 10, I would jump off a bridge.
Oh, Rodgers. Well, you're not a Jet fan anymore, so it doesn't matter.
Touche.
We are exposing Samter today. I actually feel bad about this with all what Samter did for us at the Super Bowl. But, man, I think Rodgers, what did he put 4 fingers in that Scotch drink when they drafted Jordan Love? I think he's double-fisted at that point if they select a quarterback in this draft. And then going to do some ayahuasca and then going right on McAfee, and then right after McAfee locking himself in a dark cave for about 3 days. Oh, that would be so. You know what? Here's my one wish of the NFL offseason. My one wish is that the Jets draft a quarterback in the first round because I love me some drama, and some more drama. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So we're going to do a draft here right now. Mahomes right now is the king of the NFL. So we're going to make 5 selections each. Who is the next quarterback to, you want to do it this way, win a Super Bowl? The next quarterback to win a Super Bowl and take down Patrick Mahomes. So whether that's beating him in the playoffs in the AFC or beating him in the Super Bowl in the NFC. Because right now, this is Mahomes' world. Everyone's chasing Mahomes, and we're just all living it, and we're watching it. So I will start things off. I will go with the obvious one, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has defeated Mahomes 3 times, once in the postseason. As long as he stays healthy, he is the first guy you have to draft on this list. Samter, go ahead. Samter always gets screwed in this draft, what I realize, because either I go Stu first or I go first, and basically Samter is like the frosting inside the Oreo. It may be the best. It is the best part, but you're just getting screwed out of this conversation whenever we do these drafts. So what do you got?
Yeah, so number 2 is tough for me. There's 3 or 4 guys that are kind of angling for this number 2 after Burrow, but I think it's really just the most obvious one, the guy who, the Michael Jordan versus the Pistons kind of thing, the guy who just can't get over that hump, but once he does, it looks like a championship is his, so I'm going to go Josh Allen with the Bills.
Okay. Stu?
All right, my first pick, I know I have 2 picks here. My first pick.
No, why do you get 2 picks?
It's a snake draft. When you get the first draft, when you get the first pick, you snake it. That's how it works.
I don't know. I got this nice water bottle at some party, this Gatorade water bottle. I'm reading the fine print here. It says there's no snake drafts allowed on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
Then having the first pick, you automatically get the best team. It doesn't work like that. The whole point of a snake draft. Come on now.
You know what we should do?
Tell me now.
If I ever need a drink on the air, we should have like Shep just on standby. He comes running in, and he's basically like the water boy around here for us. That's what we should do. He could be like a trainer for us on this show. Since Shep always tries to get on this show in some capacity and try to start fights with us on this very fine radio program. Anyway, Stu, what do you got?
Yeah, there are a few options here. As much as this hurts me, I will put Justin Herbert as my first pick only because with Harbaugh, I just think, that kind of unlocks his potential. And then for my second pick, I will go C.J. Stroud. I just like the upside of that team. It might be... he might not be the next one to do it. They might be a couple years away, but he's right there. He's such a good young player.
All righty, Samter.
Oh, man.
It's a good pick, by the way, Stu.
Yeah, but both of those would have been like, I was angling for a bunch of guys at number 2. Stroud and Herbert were both within that number 2 range. So Stu may have gotten the 2 next best picks after your Burrow. At the end of the day, I know he keeps falling in the playoffs, but Lamar Jackson is a 2-time MVP. You can't avoid Lamar. Eventually, maybe he'll be able to take down Patrick Mahomes.
All righty, my next pick. I don't believe in this team anymore, but I still believe in the player. And let's just remember a year ago, this player outplayed, even though they lost, Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl. I am going to take Jalen Hurts, and even though I don't think this was just a one-time problem with the Eagles, I'm going to hope that it is a one-time problem. So I'm going Jalen Hurts. Now, I get the next pick here. Ooh, this is going to be interesting. Is anyone going to go with a guy that's a little bit older? That's my question. Now, I'm not taking Rodgers because he's the quarterback of the Jets. But you know who I will take? A guy that won a Super Bowl a few years ago. A guy that I think found some new life this year. They drafted Puka Nacua. He was a stud. If it wasn't for Stroud, he would have won Offensive Rookie of the Year. You still got Cooper Kupp. You still got Aaron Donald. And you got Sean McVay. I'm going to take, with my next selection, Matthew Stafford.
It's not a bad pick. I had him a little bit lower down. I think it's a little bit of a reach. If I'm Mel Kiper, I'm saying you probably could have gotten him in the third or fourth round. You didn't have to go second round with this guy. You know what?
Is that like Belichick drafting Cole Strange?
No, it's like Trent Dilfer going number 2, maybe something like that. Let's look ahead. All right, you know what? I may or may not have been a Jet fan in my past, but the Jets' defense is loaded. Their offense is loaded. They just need that quarterback. They're going to draft an offensive lineman. If Aaron Rodgers is healthy, that team is going to be dangerous, and I think they can take out Patrick Mahomes like they did during the regular season.
You took Rodgers?
Yes, sir.
Sure about that?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is who I just took. His name is Aaron Rodgers. He's the quarterback of the New York Football Jets.
The guy that couldn't win a second Super Bowl in Green Bay, right?
Hey, I'm not saying they're going to win a Super Bowl.
Games.
I'm not saying they're winning a Super Bowl, but they are going to beat Patrick Mahomes in the third round.
Yeah. Wait, now you're rooting for the Jets to beat the Chiefs? I thought you were a Chiefs fan.
I'm doing a quarterback draft of who's going to take down Mahomes.
Fugazi.
So every pick that I make is anti-Chiefs.
My mother, I was talking to her yesterday, and she goes, Samter's football fandom seems a little fugazi. Even my mother said that. She goes, she said that she likes Mike, but she did say he seems a little fugazi with the football fandom.
Listen, I love your mom. I've met her once. She seems to be very
anti-Samter. I was like, is that a joke? I forgot my mother came in the studio once.
Yeah, she seems to be very anti-Samter. I hear a lot of
she likes
negative Samter messages.
She'll make you some brownies one day. Maybe not the Delta 9 brownies that
about
Delta
to say,
9
what
Brian
kind of
has, but she'll make you some good brownies. Stu, what do you got?
For my next pick, I don't really believe in the quarterback per se, but I believe in the team a lot, and that's Brock Purdy of the 49ers.
Oh, great one.
I assume he's going to be the quarterback there for at least the next few years, and they still have a good chance to win a Super Bowl. For my wraparound pick, I will go Deshaun Watson. I think the Browns have a good amount of talent around him, a good defense led by Myles Garrett. Again, maybe I don't necessarily believe that the quarterback is elite, but with what he has around him, I think the Browns could make some noise next year.
All right.
I mean, I guess if Flacco can do it, Deshaun Watson can do it. All right, you know what? I'm torn here because if we're talking about taking down Mahomes, the odds are it's going to be an AFC quarterback because the only way it's going to be an NFC guy is if they win the Super Bowl over the Chiefs. So you gotta lean towards the AFC guys.
By the way, can I just say a name that's still available?
Yeah.
Dak Prescott is still available. Just letting everyone know.
Yeah.
Just letting everyone know Dak Prescott is still available.
I can give you a bunch of names that are still available, but I don't want to ruin all this.
No, I'm just saying Dak Prescott's still available.
So I was kind of leaning AFC. The Dolphins were good. Tua looked really good, but he just could not win in the big games. However, there was somebody who came onto the scene out of nowhere and looks like he might be the legit third coming of this franchise. Back-to-back quarterbacks.
Oh.
Jordan Love is my pick. Jordan Love is going to be the next guy to take down Patrick Mahomes.
You know what? That is an egregious miss. I think Love should have gone before Purdy, should have gone before Watson, honestly should have gone before Rodgers. Like, I think Love, with what he did in year one, is better than Watson. You almost saw Love beat Purdy in that playoff game. And then Rodgers, I think he's only playing for another year.
Are they winning
a
a Super Bowl, though, in the next 3 years?
Rookie contracts? Oh, no, well, they already did that extension. No, it's fair, but do they really have a great team in Green Bay? I don't think so. They exceeded expectations. You know what? Maybe egregious miss is a little strong. I probably thought maybe should have gone a pick or two earlier. All right, anyway, my next pick here. Oh, I get two here. I'm not picking Dak. I'm going Trevor Lawrence, bounce back. Trevor Lawrence, bounce back. And then you know what? I really want to go Arch Manning, but I'm not. I'm taking Caleb Williams. I'll take a gamble pick in the future. Caleb Williams.
All right, I had Caleb Williams a little higher up, but then I realized most likely he's going into the NFC.
There is one guy in the NFC that should be picked before this exercise is over. One guy that should definitely be picked.
Well, I got two NFC guys and
not
an
Dak.
AFC guy.
It's not Dak.
I know you're going with Jared Goff.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think Stu will do us right here and pick him last if you don't. My man, Stu. Thank you.
Now, you know what? Because I'm down to three guys. I got Tua, Dak, and Goff left. I've got Tua ranked higher, but now you kind of talked me into Goff. I'm going Jared Goff because I do think the Lions are going to get there to the Super Bowl or at least have that opportunity. So, again, the NFC's tough because they got to be in the Super Bowl. With the AFC, you can win a divisional round game against the Chiefs. You can win a wild card game against the Chiefs.
Sure, but
so I'm going to go with Goff, even though I'm leaning towards AFC. I just don't see Tua taking down, even though I love Tua. I really do. I'm going to go Goff because I want to show love to the Lions.
But I think the purpose of this draft is you take down Mahomes and you eventually go on to win the Super Bowl.
Right, but the only way the NFC teams could do that is by winning the Super Bowl, whereas a team could beat the Chiefs. You don't have to take down Mahomes.
One shot.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. Now, if we're talking about guys that are going to win the Super Bowl and take out Mahomes, that's a different story, but I think we're good.
Gotcha. You know what I just realized during this process? I would not be good at a fantasy football draft. Now, I'm in a bunch of fantasy football drafts that are in person, but I'm basically telling everyone how to pick right now. Stu is the guy that he wanted Jared Goff. He's like, oh, I got Goff. He's still available. And then I'm talking, and then I convinced Samter to take Jared Goff here and just screwed Stu.
Yeah.
So you know how I said we started this, that Samter always gets screwed in these drafts? It was actually Stu who ended up getting screwed here.
Now I got to pick between Dak and Tua, which is a very interesting choice.
You want Arch Manning?
I mean, he's on the list.
Jaden Daniels?
Just
Tom Brady's kid?
I'm talking about Drake May, maybe? And no one's talking about Drake May.
Yeah.
I'll go Tua. I just think that offense has a chance to explode, and again, they can build off it. Maybe Tua stays healthy. I just don't I don't think Dak is going to win a Super Bowl.
We
so I'm going to go
just
Tua.
picked 15 quarterbacks that could potentially take down Patrick Mahomes, and Dak Prescott and the 12-win Cowboys were not one of them.
Micah Parsons is on the line. Oh. How about Micah Parsons with us on Radio Row? Just taking a crap on TJ Watt. That was something. We'll get into that later in the show. We'll revisit that. But, man, not having Dak on this list with 15 quarterbacks. How about them Cowboys? Just out of principle, since the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, I couldn't pick Dak. I'm surprised one of you two didn't pick Dak, but I think it just shows that regardless what the Cowboys do in the regular season, everyone just has this belief that Dak is going to fold in the postseason. And since I guess through your line of thinking here is that Tua is younger, so we've just seen less failure in the big moments rather when we've just seen Dak and the Cowboys choke each and every year. All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Are you in a higher chair than normal, Stu, today? Or is that the regular chair that you use?
No, it's a normal chair. The camera that is on me fluctuates. And it's
I was going to say, you look like you were very high up today. Maybe it's just because I haven't basically seen you for a week. But I thought that seat that you had basically had hydraulics for a second. I thought you were about to touch the ceiling. So here's the draft to best beat Mahomes moving forward. I have Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Stafford, Lawrence, Williams. And Samter has Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, Jared Goff. Good pick with Jordan Love. Stu has Justin Herbert, C.J. Stroud, Brock Purdy, rocket out with his Brock out, Deshaun Watson, and Tua Tagovailoa. Update time. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
ESPN has been the home to the college football playoff since the beginning and will continue to be as the two sides have reportedly come to a 6-year extension worth $7.8 billion to keep it on the network. The NFL season is over, the NBA season heading toward the All-Star break, and the Celtics are currently the league's top team and go for their 5th straight in Brooklyn. They've been led by their star, Jason Tatum, during this stretch. He's been averaging nearly 28 points a game this month, well over 8 rebounds, and close to 7 assists.
Just trying to make the right reads. I know guys not going to let me play one-on-one. And, at times if I need to, attack matchups, obviously knowing that they're going to double to make sure we get good shots and, get guys open looks. I know in the end it's going to open the game up for myself if, my teammates.
The Bucks are coming off a huge win over the defending champs last night and go for another tonight when they host the Heat. The Timberwolves are coming off a win last night as well. It kept them in the top spot in the West, leaving them a game up on the Thunder. They'll meet the Blazers in Portland, while OKC is in Orlando. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Bart Winkler. A new year means a new show. Catch the Bart Winkler Show weekday evenings starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. You look back at 2013. That was the offseason when Andy Reid was available. Andy Reid was hired by the Kansas City Chiefs. The Eagles replaced Reid with Chip Kelly, who had good regular season numbers, but just terrible finishes. Now, he was kind of like Cliff Kingsbury. His teams would get off to these awesome starts, you would believe, and then down the stretch, it would just be absolutely miserable. And Chip did not connect with that locker room. So that, in hindsight, ended up being a mistake. The Chicago Bears, they hired Mark Trestman. Remember that name? The Jaguars, Gus Bradley. The San Diego Chargers, go Chargers, go. Mike McCoy. The Buffalo Bills, Doug Marrone. The Cleveland Browns, wow, remember this name? Rob Chudzinski. The Browns also had like 9,000 coaches in that 10-year stretch. And then the last one was Bruce Arians with the Arizona Cardinals, who had success with the Cardinals. So I'm looking at this SB Nation article from 2013. The class of 2013 ranking the new NFL head coaching hires. Well, them ranking Bruce Arians last, it was just comical. But it was in that order. Reid was 1, good selection. Then Chip Kelly was 2, Mark Trestman was 3, Gus Bradley was 4, Mike McCoy was 5, Doug Marrone was 6, Rob Chudzinski was 7, and Bruce Arians was 8. Now, at the time, if you recall, go ahead, Sam, sorry.
Yeah, it feels very weird looking back at that because, like, even though Bruce Arians was kind of an unknown commodity, he took over for Pagano and basically won Coach of the Year.
He did win Coach of the Year.
Yeah, he was great. So, like, how he's the last one there, it feels a little bit weird because the guy had proven success as a head coach literally the year before he went to the Cardinals. Like, Chudzinski had no proven track record. So, like, it made no sense that Bruce Arians was that far down the list. Yeah, let me hear.
So this was SB Nation Ryan Van Bibber. I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Is that an AI name?
It might be, but the fact that you haven't heard that name is probably the reason. The fact that Arians is that far down the list is probably why you don't know that name very well.
So let me just preface this by saying I have not read this before. So if it's something that's crazy or something along those lines, this is not me saying this. This is what was said in 2013. I'm not really sure about this one. What Arians did this year as an interim coach for Chuck Pagano was impressive. On the other hand, the beloved head coach fighting cancer is one hell of a motivating factor. Arians' Colts also had a pretty talented quarterback in Andrew Luck and a painfully easy schedule. The Bidwells are notoriously inept at running a football team. Full disclosure, I'm from St. Louis. And the handling of the situation with Ray Horton was not a good one to start a new era. Well, I weren't wrong about Bidwell and them being inept running football teams, but that's kind of crazy looking back at that. Because, I knew BA then. I actually had him on, I want to say it was my college radio show when he was taken over as the interim head coach with Pagano having cancer, leukemia, I believe it was. And he came on my show, and I think he said he would keep the Coach of the Year award if he were to win it. And that was like one of the first times I remember, as the kids would say, going viral. But you are right. I'm not saying that he should have been like 2 automatically on that list. That's what it ended up being compared to all the other people. Like Chip Kelly was the talk of college football back then. And that turned into something that was fair, putting Kelly in front of Arians. Now, it didn't pan out to be true.
I mean, that was the dream team.
Yeah, Mark Trestman was a hot name at times. But, Gus Bradley was a hot name. But I don't know. You're going to put Doug Marrone over Bruce Arians? Doug Marrone coming from Syracuse? Chudzinski? All righty. Maybe you're right. That's why we haven't ever heard of this guy ever since. And, hey, people make lists all the time. And lists end up not aging well. I'm sure I've made quite a few lists that have not aged well. I didn't think we'd be spending this much time on the show about this guy, but now I'm kind of curious what happens if you search his name. Ryan Van Bibber. Still says he's a journalist somewhere. Not that you judge everyone by followers. 4,680 followers. Yeah, I guess there hasn't been much from him. Carrington Harrison follows him. So that's got to be a well-respected. So I love Carrington. His last tweet was November 1st of 2023. Starting to think that Josh McDaniels might not be head coaching material.
Hey, he wasn't wrong.
You found my burner account.
He wasn't wrong. Stu.
It does sound like a fake account. Ryan Van Bibber? That's the name of this account? I'm looking at his LinkedIn right now. Audio production instructor. So, anyway, everyone's entitled to lists. Sometimes, though, you do see these lists and you're like, who the heck is this? There are some lists that I go, is this a real person? And who was it? Who was the company that was doing AI articles? Didn't that happen recently?
I think it was SI, wasn't it?
Oh, so maybe they should just call SI then AI.
Ha-ha.
Now, I thought SI went under, right? They had a Super Bowl party this year. I was invited to their Super Bowl party. So is SI still functioning, Samter?
Yeah, I mean, they're still pumping out stuff. They're just getting rid of a lot of their talent, and they're changing ownership, but they're still, for now, existing.
All right, let me ask you one more question here. So Reed at that time in 2013 was referred to as the coach that was well-respected, phenomenal coach, but could never win the big game. Now Kyle Shanahan's, he's not going to get fired, I don't think anytime soon, nor should he. But he has been in a lot of these big games, and he hasn't been able to win them, and they have choked these big games in embarrassing fashion. Like whenever Andy Reid would get in a big game, he would refuse to run the football, and his time management was horrendous. With Shanahan, he gets all these leads and then refuses to run the ball, and they can't find a way to get the job done. So I look at Shanahan. Is Shanahan the next Andy Reid? I can't sit here and say that right now. I think he's a good coach. Maybe one day he wins one Super Bowl. But with his team not being prepared for overtime, forget the decision, but not being prepared, not knowing the rules, and how many times they've been there and they have blown leads in the second half, maybe one day you get one. But for Andy Reid to not only get one, but get multiple, it turned out he had to draft the greatest quarterback or one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. For the 49ers, they tried doing that with Trey Lance. They tried bringing in Jimmy G. Now they have Brock Purdy, who's a good quarterback, but I don't know if he's ever going to have this enormous advantage at the quarterback position compared to some of the other guys that are playing right now.
Here's just a question quick. When Andy Reid was falling short, NFC Championship games, Super Bowls, I know that there was clock management issues with Andy Reid, but were there people questioning his ability as a coach, or was it more like on McNabb, on T.O., or on the lack of receivers for McNabb? With Shanahan, it feels like when he loses Atlanta and San Fran, it's him making bad decisions and bad play calls and bad strategy.
So I do think, I know you always get back to the whole McNabb mysterious puke thing, which I don't even know is true, but I do think there was a lot of times when Andy would lose a big game, and I know this was the case. It was terrible clock management, refusing to run the football in the second half. Remember that time where it was, who was it? I think Kelsey got hurt against Tennessee. Someone got hurt, and they barely used Kareem Hunt, and he led the league in rushing that year. So there was multiple instances where, I guess the receivers weren't always great in Philly, but then when you look around before he got Mahomes, they didn't run the ball a lot, and then the clock management was terrible.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, hour number 3 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. So, at Super Bowl week, we had a lot of content that was pumped out. Now, I thought our interviews with Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, Arthur Blank, Eli Manning, Donovan McNabb, like Little Dicky, like we could go on and on and on. Which one doesn't belong in those group of athletes? But we had some big time clips and some great conversations. And Samter did a brilliant job getting the right guests on Radio Row joining us on the show. So Micah Parsons, through a PR guy that Samter and I know, he was pitched to us kind of last second. And we were told, hey, Micah Parsons is going to do 3 shows on Radio Row. And think about it. There was at least 160, 200 outlets on Radio Row. And we were one of the 3 outlets, our show in particular, that were picked to interview Micah Parsons. Now, when I started off the interview with Micah Parsons, I didn't know how it was going to go. And I thought in the beginning, like, he wasn't that interested. But then sometimes you're in these interviews and, right, you know a lot about Micah Parsons and you hear a lot about Micah Parsons. And obviously he does the podcast. And all I did was simply ask him where it started the response. Like, I didn't even directly ask him about TJ Watt. It was just, you were a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. How'd you react to Myles Garrett winning it? And it just led into impromptu. And that kind of what set the teapot off, right? The hot water was, cold water was starting to boil and it got hot. And then you had the teapot just explode and all the steam come out. This is Micah Parsons on our show. And this thing did 4.5 million views. Like on Friday night, Samter and I with DJ, we went out and we had a few drinks and we had a nice Mexican dinner before we ended up going to U2 into Green Day, which was a legendary night. And Samter, this is how you know Samter was really feeling himself for the job that he did on Radio Row. He starts betting the over-under line on how long, how many minutes it was going to take for this thing to get to 1 million. Like, we walked from our hotel to the Luxor to Mandalay Bay, which is all inside. They're connected. It's not that long of a walk. It's less than 5-minute walk. And the thing, like, went up to, like, 200,000 in views. Like, I'm not just saying, like, 200,000 is the number just from where it was then. So it was clear this thing was trending to hit 1 million. I didn't know by the time we were going to be done with the meal, it would go to 2 million. And then within 24 hours, it was up to 4 million, which was crazy. And Jersey Jerry from Barstool Sports, who is the #1 TJ Watt fan and used to call me before he ever worked for Barstool the weekend overnights here on CBS Sports Radio, he was going after Micah off our clip. And then Micah starts fighting with Jersey Jerry. And you kept on seeing just player after player after player comment on this. Heck, Antonio Brown, he quote tweeted it. And that was just the 4 million on our video. There were people that were taking the video, posting it on their own account, and one of those accounts did 2 million views. So this thing was crazy. Mraz texted me, and he said that's the #1 headline to come out of Radio Row. He goes, that thing is everywhere. The only other thing that I thought contended with it was when Al Dukes of the Boomer and Geo show booked Randy Moss, who used to work for the NFL Network and is the horse racing commentator. And he thought he was booking for Boomer and Geo Randy Moss, the football player. And that did like 1 million something views. But our video did 4.5 million views. Hey, Samter, by the way, before I play this Micah Parsons stuff, in your long guest booking career, have you ever booked a guest thinking it was someone and it ended up not being that person? Was there ever a guest that you booked that whether you called someone and it wasn't them and you thought it was them, was there anyone ever that did go, anything ever happened to you that way? Just wondering.
No, but there was a point where I booked Steve Smith, but not the one from NFL Network. It was the Giants one. I realized it before it aired and everything like that. But I booked it and I was like, oh, this is Carolina Panthers Steve Smith, but it was New York Giants Steve Smith. We realized it like almost immediately afterwards, but it was initially when I wrote back, I thought it was the other one.
I texted Steve Smith once. Do you remember?
Which one?
The football player.
There's 2 football players.
Sorry, the legendary football player.
The
not
Carolina
the Giants,
Panthers,
the Carolina
NFL Network.
Panther.
Yeah, okay, great.
So there was a rumor last year or 2 years ago that he was going to be on the Giants coaching staff with Daboll, and I texted him congratulations, and it ended up not being true. It was just a wrong report, or he put it out there, something. I forget what happened. I also remember when you were working with Tiki and Tierney, didn't you guys call Ryan Hollins and he was on the air, and you meant to have Ryan Leaf on?
Yes, there was that. I was actually out that day, but I helped set that up. And yes, it was the wrong Ryan.
Yeah.
It was Ryan Hollins, not Ryan Leaf.
Yeah.
I was out that day, but that was an ugly look.
Were you working with Stu then?
No, Stu, was that you? I don't think that was you.
I don't know about this. So
Stu's
I'm
and
learning
even
about
if it
this.
was, I'm gonna say I misremember it like
This
Roger
sounds great.
Clemens.
Yeah, it must have been D-Cell or somebody else, but I remember I was out
Mention
that
him by
day.
name. Come on.
And I guess they were being represented by the same PR person at the time.
Yeah.
So I forwarded the
I remember
email,
that.
and I guess both their names and numbers were there, but if you just looked at the email the wrong way, it was very easy to just look at the wrong message and get the wrong Ryan.
So, Jeff Schwartz, you remember the former NFL
Of course,
offensive
brother
lineman?
of Mitchell.
I once got pitched him, and I thought it was him, and I had the number, and then I tweeted out Jeff Schwartz is going to join us, and Jeff tweeted me back saying, that's news to me. And eventually then he came on, and it ended up being someone was over Jeff Schwartz. They were playing me in terms of the whole Jeff Schwartz. Like, they were pretending to be him, and it wasn't him. I don't know. And then when I went to go call him, obviously it wasn't. And then Jeff kind of outed them. The other one, I'll give you a funny one.
Yeah.
This is when I worked with Tom D. Benedetto and Mike Biseglia. And D. Ben is now the producer for the Jim Rome Show. This was early pandemic when we were getting ready for the draft. We had Ben Barch on, who has a great story. And then a few weeks later, Ben Barch called the hotline, and he said he was listening to our show and he wanted to come on the air. Now, like, D-Ben got in my ear, and he's like, I don't know if this is him, but let's go to him. You know, he says he's just listening to the show. He wants to come on. And we just had him on a few weeks before, and we had a good conversation. So I put Ben Barch on, and I must have said it 4 or 5 times throughout the interview, like, I don't believe this is actually you. And then I kind of realized it wasn't him. There was a guy impersonating Ben Barch calling multiple radio stations. Because I reached out to whoever the agent was of Ben Barch, and he was like, wow, this is like the 3rd or 4th time it's happened this week. So that's how.
Of all the things to fake,
Yeah.
that's a weird one. You know what? There is another one that was interesting to me. There was a guy on Twitter who I guess was getting verified somehow and had a variety of different guys that he was verified as. And one of them, I think, was Spud Webb.
Oh, really?
So we booked Spud Webb via this
Verified account?
Verified Spud Webb account. And then it turned out that he also was like pretending to be, and he was smart. He wasn't getting like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. He was taking guys who, like, you know the names.
But wouldn't be impossible to get.
Yeah, like, Trent Richardson, running back. Guys that were like names that you remember, but not names that you like really have to look that deep into. And so we booked Spud Webb. Ended up not having him on. He didn't answer when we called that day. And it turned out that it was a fake account. Some guy who just somehow was able to get verified on multiple different accounts with fake actual athletes.
So it's so funny. Like, the 2 most viral moments from Radio Row was us with Micah Parsons, and that got ugly on Twitter. That was Cowboys fans and Steelers fans just fighting, and it got really nasty. But the Boomer and Gio thing was kind of fun because it was Al Dukes booking Randy Moss, the horse racing guy, thinking it was Randy Moss, the legendary wide receiver. And Randy Moss even quote tweeted it and said, oh, you got Moss. So that was at least fun. Ours got really nasty. Like, my mentions have been disgusting. Absolutely disgusting the last 3 or 4 days. So anyway, let's replay part of that Micah Parsons interview. I just brought up his reaction to him not winning Defensive Player of the Year, Nick, going to Myles Garrett, and he ended up going on this rant, ripping TJ Watt.
I'm not a sore loser. I thought it should went to Myles, if not me. I said that publicly. Myles, look at the Titans game alone. No offense, but TJ played the Titans. Did you see 2 tight ends following TJ Watt? Like, people could say whatever they want, but at the end of the day, the film does not lie. Like, his presence is way more dominant than TJ Watt, and that's just the reality of it.
So if you had to rank 5 guys in the NFL, how would you kind of rank them then?
I think I'm probably the best pure speed pass rusher. I would say if you look at my win rate and I was the best one this year, so it would be me. And I would say Myles, and I would say Max, and I would say Nick Bosa, And then I would say
not TJ.
I mean, look at the stats. Like, the stats don't lie. He was not top. I think he might have been 5th or 6th. Alex Highsmith, I think, had a better pass rush rate and a more double team rate than TJ Watt, if you really want to be statistically. Like, this isn't my stuff. Like, I'm not just pulling this out my ass. Like, look at the stats.
So I had a decision to make in that split second. Like, Santer, how you were talking about McLeod, he had that decision. You try to scoop up the football. Do you just fall on it after it got that bounce off a Niners player? And the decision I was quickly making was, do I bring up that TJ Watt led the league in sacks this past year? Or do I kind of just do the human route of it, where I was feeling that Micah Parsons just hates TJ Watt? And then I just asked him straight up, this seems like you have beef with TJ Watt. Is there any beef with TJ Watt? And here's what Micah Parsons said.
People are going to think that you and TJ Watt have some beef. There's no beef with you and TJ Watt.
There's no beef at all. One thing I hate about the NFL community, we just hate when someone else wins. Like, when I lost to TJ, I did not go in and say I got snubbed. I just said I'm going to go to work. When I lost to Nick Bosa the year after that, I did not say I got snubbed. I just said I'm going to work. Like, the biggest mistake in people is that saying that someone is not deserving. Who are you to say someone's not deserving of an award of that magnitude?
So after listening back to both cuts, Samter, all three of them, what I kind of feel going away from that, and it's even how the first one started off, he basically called TJ Watt a sore loser because Watt didn't go to the award ceremony. So I think Watt not going to the award ceremony set Parsons off, and Parsons felt like Watt was being a sore loser. But then to say that he's not a top 5 pass rusher when TJ Watt in the last 4 seasons has led the league in sacks 3 times, that's crazy. And he just led the league in sacks this past year. So use whatever metric you want. If you are sacking the quarterback the most in football this year, you can't not then be a top 5 pure pass rusher. And that's the problem that I have with the Micah Parsons conversation that we had on this show. And Micah deserves to be on that list. Myles Garrett deserves to be on that list. Max Crosby deserves to be on that list. Nick Bosa deserves to be on that list. But TJ Watt has to be on that list. And I do think the 2 best pass rushers in the NFL are Myles Garrett and also TJ Watt. And honestly, I don't think this is a hot take. I would put, and I've said this before, I would put Max Crosby in front of Micah Parsons as well. But regardless of what you think about that, I don't think there's any logical argument where Micah Parsons can actually say that TJ Watt isn't a top 5 pass rusher. And if you're just going to say the stats don't lie, and then you look at the sack numbers, that doesn't add up to me. So, we had that interview with them. We had that conversation. I don't regret anything I did in that conversation. Let me just be abundantly clear. But it was like when he was just saying it, it seemed just like there was beef between the two. And I do think there is beef there. And now this is going to become a storyline. I do think the Steelers play the Cowboys this year, so this will be revisited. But really, it did seem as if Micah may have had no beef with TJ before the award ceremony. And then the way that TJ handled the award ceremony kind of set him off. But I understand TJ Watt being annoyed. I don't think TJ Watt was trying to take away from Myles Garrett. Now, they do play in the same division, and that's nasty, Steelers and Browns. I don't think he was trying to take away from Myles Garrett. He was just annoyed that he didn't win the award for Defensive Player of the Year. And that was really, legitimately, that was a 2-man race for most of the year. Micah Parsons made a little bit of a run early in the season. Deron Bland, when he had all those pick sixes, made a run as well. But for most of the season, that was Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. That's the way that it felt like.
And you're right, Dallas actually does travel to Pittsburgh
to
play the Steelers.
We got to go to that game.
Here's the part of it also, right? If you want to make the argument, and I listed my 5.
Wait, that's Dallas in Pittsburgh?
Dallas in Pittsburgh.
Now, I never know with TV, but that should be a Jim Nantz game. And then before the game, they're using our interview from Radio Row with Micah Parsons.
That could be.
You know what? I think we may have a better chance, even though we are CBS Sports Radio. Amazon Prime Thursday night, right? I feel like Amazon Prime loves to do the radio stuff.
Yeah. They'll throw that out there. But here's part of it, right? I put out my list, and I put T.J. Watt as number 1, right? But if you want to make the case...
you put out a list?
I put out my list. I had Watt 1, Garrett 2, Parsons 3, Max Crosby 4. No, I'm sorry, Bosa 3, Parsons, then Crosby.
So say that one more time. Watt 1, Garrett 2.
Garrett, Bosa, Parsons, Crosby.
Okay. All
right, and if you want to put Crosby above Parsons, I can make... Yeah.
But put it this way. I think those 5 have to be on the list.
Right. So here's my point, though, right? And this was the interesting thing. When you asked him, when he was looking for number 5, he named
never
himself,
gave us the name.
He named Watt, he named Garrett, he named Bosa, and he named Crosby. He couldn't come up with the 5th. There's a tier 1, and tier 1 is those 5 guys. And you can, honestly, if you want to say Max Crosby is number 1, you can make the argument. If you want to say Parsons, you can make the argument. All 5 of those guys legit have an argument of being called the best pass rusher in the NFL. There's not a second tier that's close, right? You want to put Danielle Hunter or Josh Allen or Hendrickson of the Bengals, who had 17 sacks this year, fine, but they're not on that same level. The fact that he couldn't come up with a 5th name and he had to throw out Alex Highsmith as far as his win rate, clearly TJ Watt would be in his top 5. He was intentionally trying to keep TJ Watt off of his top 5, whatever he thought about the guy. And you know what? Say what you want to say. When there's beef, I love little beef. I love a little beef. Right? Cowboys, Steelers, there's nothing better than Cowboys and Steelers beef or any kind of beef between like 2 big players. Now, I would love to see like a beef of an old lineman versus a pass rusher, or a quarterback versus a DB, right? When it's 2 quarterbacks against each other, like they don't actually face each other. Their teams do.
Yeah.
I want to see like Sauce Gardner talking junk against Josh Allen. Right, that's what I want to see. I want to see Aaron Donald talking smack against Brock Purdy. That's what I want to see. I want to see that.
Did you see Aiden Diggs at the Pro Bowl
talking smack against my man Sauce? Yeah,
yeah. He went up to Sauce. He was like, "I know you. You talked a lot of smack about my uncle." And then he goes, "And what happened?" Right in front of Ray Lewis was there, and everyone was like dying. He goes, "He scored a touchdown on you week 1." And Sauce like, "I don't remember that."
Hey, listen, at the end of the day, it's not going to matter because Steph Diggs won't be on the Bills anyway, so Sauce doesn't have to worry about him anymore.
Oh, I do think Diggs will be on the Bills next year. He may not want to be there, but I do think he will be there. Why, did you talk to him at the Gatorade party and get some information that I don't have?
Yeah, he and Trayvon were both there. There's a bunch of like PR people, you, me, and those 2 guys were like, something does not feel, the same here. These guys are like badass. And then I realized
I was like, why is Samter here?
Yeah, there's a bunch of videos up on the board, and like Trayvon and Steph were both on there. I'm like, oh yeah, they're here promoting Gatorade, whereas we're here drinking Gatorade.
You know what's crazy? With Steph Diggs there and also Trayvon Diggs, I kind of wanted Aiden Diggs to be there. And that was actually one of my favorite.
He's too young.
I know.
Too much alcohol being served there.
Yes, but that was my favorite part of Media Week, actually, or Radio Row, was when we wrapped up with Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks. Aiden Diggs just showed up out of nowhere and started like interacting with those 2 guys. I wish that happened during the interview because, quite frankly, I'd rather talk to Aiden Diggs than, no offense, I love Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks. But Aiden Diggs, I think, is going to be a star. He may be a star player and then a star commentator as well. That kid is one of the more entertaining kids, and the content that he produces that you'll ever meet. Anyway, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Yeah, maybe that's why I didn't ask him for the 5th one, because he did kind of say Alex Highsmith. But I that's the one thing I could say.
I don't think he was throwing Highsmith as the 5th. He was just using him as an example
on the team,
on
his own team.
He was just trying to knock TJ and trying to show, hey, he had a better win rate than
maybe that's the one. Maybe I could have just pressed him on that. Like, who's the 5th? Who's the 5th? Who's the 5th? Because you are right. He stalled and the conversation just went in a different direction.
It worked out exactly the way it had to work out.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I got a nice message today from a listener. Now, a listener a year ago on my birthday said, I know you're a big Rangers fan. I have season tickets. I would love to take you to a Rangers game next year. So I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. Never heard back from that guy. And I got a message this morning from him saying, hey, Zach, my apologies. I don't go on the cesspool too much, talking about Twitter. but should have reached out sooner as I listen every day, mostly on the podcast to catch up. Congrats on all the success and the amazing shows and interviews out in Las Vegas. Anyhow, I know it's taken almost most of the season for this, but I have an extra ticket to the Ranger game this Thursday against Montreal. Let me know if you'd be interested. And then he told me about the seat and everything like that. Talk to you soon. So I responded back like, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the invite. You want to invite me to a hockey game? I'm in. I'm down. I'm good to go. So we're going to be going, Billy is his name. We're going to be going to the hockey game on Thursday. Now, Samter, just me trying to be, a good guy, generally a good guy. This guy's taking me to the game. It's a part of his season ticket package. He didn't ask me for a dime for the ticket. The seats are fine. Nothing crazy. How many beers do I have to buy this guy? Assuming that he drinks alcohol. Like, I at least have to buy him 1 beer, probably 2 beers, you would think? Or do I have to do 3 beers? Like, 1 to start the game, 1 after the first intermission, and then 1, at the end of the second because they stop beer sales when the third period starts.
You know what? He's taking you to the game. I think, unless he's just a lush chugging beers every 5 minutes, you just buy the beers for the game.
And then see where it goes from there?
I mean, listen, if he's chowing down beers, like, he's on beer number 3.
Like Stu on a Saturday night.
Yeah, he's on beer number 3. You're halfway through the first period. Then maybe you rethink it. But, I think as long as he's a normal guy, just buy his beers for the night.
Okay, that's fair. But I don't want to have to drink beers all throughout the night.
So then don't. You buy yourself something.
How much we had to drink in Las Vegas.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
And all the food. I've never felt better than today. Than when I got on that elliptical. And it was just an hour of me, my thoughts, and Bruce Springsteen playing music. That was phenomenal.
There is something to be said about sitting at a poker table and they just bring you drinks. Yeah. You don't have to pay. You give them a little bit of a tip, but you don't have to pay for any of the drinks. So you're kind of losing all your money, at least I did, losing all my money at the poker table, and they just keep feeding you more and more drinks that you lose more and more.
Yeah, and then Samter is the guy at the restaurant that just sends drinks back, as we learned.
Enough of that.
Anyway, let's get to Brandon Ayuk. So, what are you, clicking your pen a lot today, right there? You jittery today? You good?
I mean, you're calling me a guy who throws my drink back. Morse code.
You all right?
I'm sending secret messages via Morse code.
Okay. You got to stop at the pen clicking. It's annoying the crap out of me. That's all I could hear.
Oh, see, you just opened up Pandora's box now.
Oh, no. That's fine. Your microphone doesn't need to be on during the show.
You know how much I hate that word that starts with the same letter as my name.
Moist?
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
And it's become now my idiom here. Yeah. It has become my moniker. And so now I know what pisses you off. Now I know what annoys you. Now I know what you hate.
Click that pen one more time. I think Stu's going to side with me on this one, and he will cut your microphone off very simply.
I'll agree with Zach on that.
I say this is checks and balances, but we know that this is really a dictatorship when push comes to shove here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Anyway, we went after the Cowboys when the Cowboys had their family members popping off on social media after they lost to the Green Bay Packers and got embarrassed by the Green Bay Packers. So Brandon Ayuk's girlfriend, and then I don't know if this is Brandon Ayuk's best friend or his actual brother. It's been reported as his brother. They've been popping off after the Super Bowl, both of them. So the best friend or brother said, "This is the exact reason why we are leaving San Francisco. Thank you, 49ers, for drafting my brother. We are forever grateful. BA to Vegas." And then he also ended up saying, "Why does your all-pro 1,300-yard receiver have 3 catches in the Super Bowl?" Fair point. We'll get to it in a second. Now, this is Brandon Ayuk's girlfriend on TikTok talking about Brandon Ayuk. Listen up.
Well, okay, this might have been the last day we touched foot on Levi Stadium, me and Braylon, because we might not be out here next season.
So we may not be here next year.
And just for clarification, she says Braylon, that's their kid that they have together.
Okay.
So it's not like she misspoke and didn't say Brandon, it's Braylon is their son.
If I was an NFL player, I would tell my family member, when you're talking about my future, never do it on social media. Only talk about my future behind the scenes with other family members. And I'm not saying I'm at any level of fame as Brandon Ayuk is.
I mean, you are Zach Gelb.
But I thank you. I appreciate that. Just don't click that pen. But I've told my family before, if I'm getting dragged on social media, or even if there's something positive, stay off of it. Like, don't interact. Because I don't want my family getting involved. And, hey, my dad's on Twitter. I have family that's on Facebook. And Facebook is, like, I think a little bit more different than Twitter and Instagram. But I don't want you guys, like, getting involved in that, in, like, the sports debate. Because I'll have people that will just interact with me and say, oh, I hate your guts. And then I respond saying, oh, that's nice. Have a good Thursday. Or whatever. And they'll be like, oh, no, I actually listen every day. I was just trying to get a reaction out of you. So I don't like, hey, I'm public. I talk about my family all the time. I don't want my family to do my fighting. I could do my own fighting. So I don't think it's a good look, whether it was Micah Parsons' brother, whether it was CeeDee Lamb's mother, Dak Prescott's family member, and now Brandon Ayuk's close relatives or, his girlfriend, talking on his behalf. Now, Ayuk, to be fair, he did talk about this, and this was at his locker today, right, Santer? And also Ayuk before this said on Instagram, don't forget what got you there. So, like, Ayuk has played into this, but this was Ayuk today at 49ers cleanout day, and here's Brandon Ayuk.
Brandon, there's been some stuff on social media. Is there a certain message that you want to get out there as you kind of enter this offseason and there might be contract talks?
A certain message? No.
Is your hope to remain with the 49ers moving forward?
If that's the right move, yeah.
What would that right move look like for you?
Being a champion.
I know that they just lost the Super Bowl, so I'm not expecting that to be like a happy kind of media session. That sounds like a dude that realizes the Niners aren't going to pay him, and I know the Niners have some salary cap issues coming up, and he knows that, and he's already starting the negotiations. And with him having 1 year left on his deal, I would not be surprised if there's a Brandon Ayuk trade request shortly coming after that. I don't think Ayuk is going to be on the Niners next year, and if he does, with how it already has gone down last 24, 48 hours, I think that would be an ugly year. But it does go back to the friend or brother's point. You look back at that Super Bowl, it's kind of crazy that the Niners were in control and how close that Super Bowl was when George Kittle had 4 yards on 2 catches, Brandon Ayuk had 3 catches and 49 yards, and Deebo Samuel only had 3 catches and 33 yards. That's kind of crazy with how great those 3 players are, that pretty much all 3 of those players for most of the game were non-factors. And really, that MVP would have either been McCaffrey or it would have been Jawan Jennings if the Niners would have won. And on that play that was incomplete at the end when Chris Jones blew up the play and you had McCaffrey open, Kittle open, it was Jawan Jennings who was open on the right side. He catches that touchdown, let's say, on that 3rd and 4 play. That would have been 2 receiving touchdowns in the game, and he also threw a touchdown. So that MVP race, if the Niners would have won and they didn't, would have been between Jawan Jennings and also Christian McCaffrey. And McCaffrey led the team in receiving yards and rushing yards and had a touchdown. But this feels like it's the beginning of the end of Brandon Ayuk's time with the 49ers. And we all thought the speculation was going to be about T. Higgins and where he was going to get dealt. T. Higgins is going to get franchise tagged. That's been out. But now, Brandon Ayuk, final year of his deal, had over 1,300 yards this year, 7th most in the league. He could be a number 1 wide receiver. Now, there's going to be teams that are going to be calling for Brandon Ayuk. And I would go as far to say this. If I had a late first-round pick, I give up a first-round pick for Brandon Ayuk. Kind of similar to like what the Eagles did. They had a pick somewhere in the 20s, I think it was. And they ended up getting A.J. Brown. I think Brandon Ayuk is a very attractive name. Now you got to give him a contract. And that contract's probably going to be like $28, $30 million a year potentially with how receivers are paid now. But I would do that for Brandon Ayuk because look at what he just did this year. Now, he won't have Deebo Samuel around him. He won't have Christian McCaffrey around him. He won't have George Kittle, so it does open things up. But Brandon Ayuk's a first-round pick. He's a really good wide receiver.
And he won't have a quarterback as good as Brock Purdy. I mean, that's for sure.
I understand your sarcasm for there. But back-to-back 1,000-yard years, and he took a big jump this year. That's a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. We'll get to some early Super Bowl odds for next year, and I think the team that is number one will surprise a lot of people. Update time first. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, the college football playoff is staying at ESPN, with the network reportedly getting a 6-year extension. The NBA's Western Conference has been wild over the last couple of weeks. Just a few days ago, there was a 4-way tie for the lead. Right now, the Timberwolves have sole possession of the top spot in the conference following last night's win over the Clippers. And as they meet the Blazers tonight, head coach Chris Finch would like to see a repeat performance of last night.
Except for one little period in the second quarter, we did a great job of really making the right play. They threw a lot of different defensive looks at us, so it was kind of tough to sift through at times. But yeah, 32 assists, and we had 14 turnovers, but that's good for us.
The Thunder are a game back, and they will meet the Magic in Orlando. The Celtics have the NBA's best record and go for their 5th straight win against the Nets in Brooklyn. 4th-ranked Marquette on the road at Butler, looking for its 8th straight win. And as teams get set for spring training to begin over the next few days, the Giants have come to terms with veteran Jorge Soler on a 3-year deal worth $42 million. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is JR. Let's hang out weeknights here on CBS Sports Radio for my show, The JR Sport Brief. 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. We're the Backstreet Boys, and you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
We got something going viral right now between two 49ers players. So I'll get to the Super Bowl odds for 2024 in just a second. But you have two offensive linemen that were going at it for the 49ers in regards to that play on 3rd and 4 where Chris Jones just blew it up and Purdy had 3 guys open but didn't have time to get him the football. So John Feliciano tweeted out, I guess he was responding to someone, a quick chop is not needed if the guy that was supposed to block him blocks him. So Spencer Burford, who was the player that was called into question, says, sheesh, I opened up my app to this. Get well soon, bro. So now hold on. I got to make sure before I continue this. One of these aggregators has this. Is this actually John Feliciano's Twitter account? It is. Yeah, I know it is. I saw Mongo Feliciano. And if you guys used to listen to Mike Francesa, his listeners are called the Mongos. So I thought maybe that this was someone that got. But it's for one of the aggregators that are usually pretty accurate. So it is. Feliciano then responds back to Burford. I'm sorry, bro. I woke up hungover and being a bitch in trying to have one's back. It hurt you. It's effed up, and I apologize. You got nothing but greatness ahead of you. I'm sorry, bro. There's some days that I wake up and I tweet things and I regret them. Like I'll respond to someone that I probably shouldn't respond to. Like today, I saw this right when I woke up and I got an okay night's sleep as I'm trying to adjust to trying to adjust to the whole jet lag situation. And I see on my Facebook that I was rooting for the Chiefs, but I have to come to the defense of Kyle Shanahan tonight. In some circles, he's being vilified for the 49ers' loss last night. Some clown named Zach Gelb on CBS, who I'm pretty sure never played or coached a single sport, said it was disgraceful that the 49ers lost. Really, with 3 seconds to go, did Shanahan miss that extra point? Did he fumble near the goal line? I understand second-guessing coaching. I know I'm guilty on occasion, but his guys were in the game and could have just easily won. Disgraceful. So I just responded back to this person. Another 10-plus point lead in a Super Bowl, you have to finish that. And they blew it again. Run the ball with CMC in the second half. Have your team prepared to know the OT rules. Also, Dave, I'll have you shine my 9th grade Offensive Lineman of the Year trophy in a few weeks. So I probably shouldn't have responded to this person, but I did. And then the guy responded back just now. The real Zach Gelb, I won't believe it's you if I don't hear you acknowledge it on your show. He's live. He's nationwide. Show between 4 to 6 in Wichita. I still hold my position, but sorry for the clown reference. See, this is what I was just talking about the last segment, Samter. You have someone throwing shrapnel saying, oh, you're a clown, blah, blah, blah. And you respond, it's like, oh, I need you to mention me on the show. I love the show. I listen all the time, but I hold what I say. So there you go. There's your mention, Dave Hawley, on Facebook. How about that?
I mean, listen, you called him out. He backtracked. I think he was a little bit afraid of that 9th grade Offensive Lineman of the Year trophy. Because, I mean, when you're talking about playing the game, my 9th grade 3-snap running back NFL or football career is scary to many as well.
But wait, that's right. You tore your ACL.
Yeah. I was playing. I was the slot receiver on the scout team, and then 2 of the running backs got hurt, and the 3rd running back was in the doghouse, so they put me in, and 3 plays into my first practice as the number 1 running back, I tore my ACL.
What if I told you if Michael Samter didn't tear his ACL, he would be the next Barry Sanders, Moist Mike in the backfield?
I'm just saying, guys like Deuce Vaughn give me hope.
I think Darren Sproles was a good inspiration to you, too.
So the coach told me before I got hurt, he's like, the reason why we didn't put you in earlier to be the lead guy, because like in practice I was crushing everybody. I was great. He's like, we were just worried about you getting hurt because you're small. Yeah. And I'm like, I get it. And then 3 plays in, I got hurt.
No, that's just.
But he told me, he's like, talent-wise, you're as good as our number 1 or number 2 guys. You're just small.
Now, I'm not going to pretend that I was like better than I actually was, because I was not great. But I won offensive lineman for my high school in 9th grade as a freshman. And there was a lot better football players.
Was that on the varsity team or was it on the freshman team?
It was on JV team.
All right, so as a freshman on the JV team, you won Offensive Lineman of the Year.
Yeah.
All right, that's not bad.
So I had the trophy, and I went to summer camp one summer, and my dad broke the trophy when he was cleaning the house.
Sure he did.
He broke the trophy.
No, cleaning the house.
No,
I know your dad. No. Your dad broke the trophy in a fit of rage for some other reason.
Trust me. Like, remember Berta from 2.5 Men? You remember her?
I don't know the show.
She's the maid. My dad loves cleaning. I think one of my dad's happiest things in life is cleaning the house.
Interesting.
He's crazy. He's like Danny Tanner, the late great Bob Saget was in Full House. He loves cleaning the house. And he was cleaning the house one night, probably had a cocktail or 2. And when he was dusting off my room, when I was at sleepaway camp, he broke the trophy and then tried to think I wouldn't realize it and super glued it back together. So that's something that still annoys me to this day.
I did that to a vase after a party that we may or may not have gotten in trouble for having.
But after seeing you for a week, that was a rage break.
I mean, rage break or beer break, who knows, one or the other.
I'll never forget, I was once in a basement for a party, and there was music being played at one of my friends' home, and I went to go fist pump, and my fist went right through the light and broke a light because the ceiling was so low.
Yeah, I had that issue too about breaking things on the ceiling and on the roof a lot. I could always reach it in that situation. Yeah. It's funny also, you talked about your 9th grade Offensive Lineman Award. As a senior for my baseball team, I was on the varsity team for 2 years.
Yeah.
I won the Player Award.
Oh, sorry.
I won the Player Award, and that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Player Award for the baseball team. Player Award was the guy with the most spirit who helped the team along with his heart. That's the Player Award, but it sounds like MVP. No. It sounds like best player. So I won the 1998 Scarsdale Varsity Baseball Player Award for having the heart.
You never want to get the sportsmanship trophy.
I know, but they call it the Player Award, so I just tell people, I had the Player Award my senior year. People are like, oh, yeah.
That's like you really sucked as a baseball player, but, the kid gives good effort.
Oh, you want to hear the worst part of it?
Yeah.
For 2 years, I was the starting right fielder for my varsity team.
Oh.
I was DH for both years.
Wait, but it was high school baseball.
Yeah, high school baseball, but as the right fielder, the right fielder doesn't get DH for, the pitcher gets DH for.
Okay, fine. But like in Little League, if you were playing right field, that's like when they put the kid that sucked in right field.
No. I was a great defensive player. I was fantastic defensively.
Ground, quick.
Yeah, I would dive. I made amazing catches. I was a great defensive player, and I was a good hitter. But apparently not good enough. I got DH for 2 years.
My dad just texted me. He goes, Berta my ass. But that's what my mom and I refer to him. We sometimes call him Berta because he loves to clean the house. He loves to be the maid. Anyway, Super Bowl odds are out for next year already. How the Chiefs aren't the favorite is a joke. The Niners are at plus 500 and the Chiefs are at plus 750. I know, right? They would go back to back to back. That's never done before. But at plus 750... You have to make the Chiefs the favorite. It can't be the 49ers. You can't win a big game to save their life. After that, the Ravens are at plus 850. The Bills are at plus 1,200. The Lions are at plus 1,200. The Bengals are at plus 1,400. Cowboys at plus 1,600. Eagles at plus 1,600. Where are the Rams? The Rams are at plus 3,000.
Put some money right now, baby.
Like if I was making Super Bowl odds right now, I'd say Chiefs would be 1, Niners would be 2. I'd put the Lions 3. The Bills would be 4, the Bengals would be 5, and then the Rams would be 6. I think those would have to be the 6 highest odds. I'm really high on the Rams going into next year. Like, if it was today, I think I may pick the Rams to win the NFC if I had to make a prediction today, but I don't. Anyway, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Fun show today. Appreciate all the interaction on the phones and also in the YouTube chat. Make sure you join the YouTube chat one day, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. You can also continue to listen to us all across our great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, and the free Odyssey app. We will be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Big thanks to Stu and Mike, as always, each and every one of you, and also Justin Pugh for joining us earlier in the program. All righty. Talk manana, everybody. Always give us a follow, Twitter, Instagram, at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.